Hello and welcome back to the Live Rally Game Podcast. My name is Stephen and it's time for more Surviving Reelfoot, the Decennium deep dive coverage. And join us today, he is the third juror, Tony. Tony, how are you doing? I know, the reaction is like, that's not what I wanted when I stepped into the game.
I'm doing good. Thanks for doing this. This is amazing. Personally, I'm very excited for it. And from what I've gathered from everybody else who's gone so far, everyone's really loved it. So I'm looking forward to it.
How is your post-Reelfoot life been treating you?
It's been good. Like now I'm like completely over it. But like I will say, like the day 1, 2, 3, 4, like after the game, I got home that Sunday around 3:30. It was just I live in Knoxville, so it was just like a 5-hour drive for me. So I left that morning, got home, took a nap like immediately for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, ate dinner, and was like asleep at like 8 o'clock and slept until I worked the next morning, which was 8 a.m. So like I was like, okay, that was a lot of sleep. I'm caught up. I'm good to go. Next night, like I was out at 8 again, woke up at 8 again. It happened for like 4 nights in a row. So it definitely wore on me for a few days. It took me that weekend, like laying in bed and just relaxing, not having to get up for work. And like once that happened, I was like, okay, I'm back on my normal schedule. I felt like
it's amazing playing these games, and you're like, people do this for 26 to 39 days. Like, what kind of toll does that take on them, to be honest?
Yeah, I could see where like if I made it another day in the game, I could see where I maybe could have actually slept just from like straight up like being tired. Because like I really didn't sleep much. Like night 1 didn't sleep, night 2 maybe slept an hour, like maybe slept an hour. Like I think the last night I finally slept like 3 or 4, but never really slept. So yeah, I mean it caught up to me by the end for sure.
Yeah, that's exhaustion works to an extent, but it's you're on the ground, it's hot, it's cold, you're uncomfortable, it's raining on you, it's hard to get that sleep in.
Yeah, for sure.
So talk to me about how you discovered Reelfoot.
So I got into online orgs back when COVID started. I started on Twitter actually, and it was bad.
There were Twitter orgs?
Yeah, it was bad. Like it felt good at the time when it was the very first one I played. So I was like, ooh, Survivor. I love Survivor. Like I'll play one. And like looking back on it, I got into Facebook orgs and then like fell in love with it, like being able to actually communicate with real people, because Twitter was like straight up anonymous. Like you really had no idea who you were talking to. Facebook turned into like video calls and like really making friends with a lot of these people. And I loved that. And I loved the strategy and the social part of it. So once I got into that, I slowly started finding out about live reality games, and Reelfoot was like the first one I really heard of. I had friends who played. I think Sarah Hart was like the first friend I knew that played, and then Lauren and Storm both played, and they all like recommended it. And then that's how I got into it. I almost applied for the year before, but I wasn't like quite ready for it. Like I don't know if it time, work, like all that stuff kind of factored in. And I was like, all right, I'll just wait till the next year. And to be honest with you, like this might sound conceited, but I guess from being in orgs, like I'm pretty popular in the org community. Like I hosted a pretty big online game, and I never thought the chance like to not be casted for Reelfoot. Like I always just thought I would be casted. I didn't think it was going to be like some big hard thing to get casted for, really. And like they told me I was an alternate, and I was like pretty like not happy about it, to be honest, like because I just thought I was going to be casted. But then I took a minute and I was like, look, all right, they basically told me like this many people applied, like it's hard. Like, and they told me like I have 4,000 friends. I don't know all of them at all. I don't know probably 10% of them, but it's just from orgs. So that's what they told me. They said it was based on my connections. And I mean, yeah, like I'm friends online with Jordan, friends online with Melissa, Carl, Debbie, like all these people. But like, I really had only talked to Carl. Like, yes, I was friends with them. So, I mean, if they went based off of that, like I get it. But like, also I kind of wish they would factor in the fact that like, just because I'm friends with them on Facebook doesn't mean I've ever interacted with them too.
Well, see, I was seeing I was close to 1,000, and like because these podcasts, sometimes I get these friend requests. I'm like, I don't know who these people are.
Yeah, I had a lot. I don't know
So
all
when
of
did you
them.
get the call that you're on the cast?
I'd say 2 months before it started,
Mhm.
maybe 3. It was between 2 and 3. And I found this out while I was out there. I'm 99% sure it was Ryan Reed who I replaced. And Ryan Reed is like best friends with Melissa, who we will then go into, who ends up being like my number one throughout the game, obviously. But
You took his
yeah,
place.
it's just funny how that kind of happened, how I replaced him.
And so you're on the cast. You have a couple months. Do you do anything to prepare?
So I was in the gym before I got the alternate call. Like I was in a rhythm. Like I was going 2, 3, 4 times a week. Like I was getting it. And then I actually had a bound recluse spider bite on my knee, or like right under my knee. And it was like kind of bad, like a month, maybe a month and a half before Reelfoot started. It's pretty gross if you ever want to see a picture of it. And
Okay.
so it took me out. I mean, I couldn't go to the gym or anything for like that whole time beforehand. So I basically used that to learn how to make fire, and I got it. I mean, I figured out, I knew I could do it the whole time,
Mhm.
basically. Um, it was fun learning how to make fire. I'm a huge Survivor fan. So to actually like finally order the flint and like spark it, get the magnesium, all that stuff. That was really cool to like start my first fire before being out on Reelfoot. But yeah, that's how I prepared basically.
So going into your first live game, were there things you were worried about or excited about?
I'm very picky eater. I've always been worried about the food aspect of it. And I've always been over to sleep pretty easily. Temperature wise, never really factored conditions, comfort, like none of that really factored into me sleeping. So I wasn't worried about that. And then I get out there and it's like the total opposite. Like I never was really hungry, I felt like,
Mhm.
and sleeping, I never got sleep. So it was just funny how it was not what I expected at all as far as that goes.
So you arrive at Reelfoot. Was there anyone there you recognize or anyone stand out to you in that early pregame period?
Yeah, so obviously Carl was the first person I recognized, and I actually was like 95% sure Carl was going to be there. And
Really?
I don't think he knows that. I haven't told him that yet, but I somehow found out that somebody from Knoxville was playing, and I found out that Carl applied, and I know Carl is a huge personality. If Carl applies for
Mhm.
something, like you're probably going to cast him. He's a huge personality. And then I think like 3 days beforehand, I had a friend tell me that Carl told him that he was playing. So I expected Carl to be there. Um, but when I saw him, like he's gone into it, and I'll go into it too. But like we had major beef, like online. Like he was literally number one enemy rival, and I was his. Like we got into it in a couple orgs that we played together. But literally when I saw him, all it took to know that we were locked in was literally just a look and a head nod, and I was in. Like it was just like you look at Carl and you know he's somebody who just like it goes off of respect, and just like he's gonna
Mhm.
honor that. I felt like, and as soon as he looked at me and like smiled and gave me a head nod, I was like, all right, cool, let's get it. Like I'm excited, let's do it. He
The
was number
people.
one. Debbie, I recognized. She has a small stature, obviously, so she stands out as well as somebody. And I was friends with her on Facebook. I actually played like a Squid Games game with her. I
Mhm.
think there was like 200 something people, so it was like hard to actually talk to people individually.
Mhm.
But I recognized her, and Danny was the other one. Danny actually, and he doesn't know that he didn't know this at the time, but he actually just killed me in a Hunger Games game, mini of arrears, and he didn't know that at all. But I knew it, so it definitely factored into how we communicated on the tribe too, because I had to basically like I thought he knew, like I would just assume that he would recognize it, and
Mhm.
if I'm him, I'm a little worried because he just like voted me out, killed me off or whatever, and so it definitely factored into how we communicated.
Mhm. And was that something like, did that actually ever come up, or was that just kind of what shaped your initial communications interactions with them?
So it didn't come up. I finally told him after he, um, said that he wanted us to vote him out. As we were walking to camp, I told him, I was like, so, we just played over years many together. And he as far as I know, he had no clue. And so he was like, what? I wish you would have told me that. We could have worked together and blah, 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 blah. And so, maybe I should have brought it up day one as soon as I recognized him. But I didn't, because I was worried that if he thought that I was bitter that he voted me out in a mini, like it might factor into how he does this. So, yeah.
Did anyone else stand out to you?
That was it. Let me think. Yeah, that was it.
And so
all these connections they thought I had, I felt like I had like one of the least amount.
My favorite. So I was in a chat watching Reelfoot. Everyone's like, Tony's in this Oregon one right now. He just told everyone like they need to pause it for a week so he can go play Reelfoot. That amused me. Yep,
I was doing well. I felt like I was gonna win, but I was like, I told them before they casted me in the org, I was like, I have this thing that I literally will not be able to play the game for. But they were like, all right, if you get voted out before that, which like odds are you probably would. And then they were like, okay, if you don't, we'll ask everybody on the cast that's left. If they say yes, then we'll pause it. And everyone said yes except one person, and that one person was the person who won the game. So good on them, I guess. Yeah. So while I was out there, I had Nate. Nate was giving me updates on who was voted out of the org. He told me who got 6th and who got 5th, and then like the final day, I want to say it was that Thursday, he told me I was like voted out at 4th, and I was like, no. I had a whole FTC speech like pre-sent in and everything.
So you're split into tribes, and 2 players you mentioned, Debbie and Carl, both are on the Pink Nankana tribe, but you are on the Green Okina tribe. So it's you along with Charlie, Ethan, Hannah, German, Melissa, Trinica, Melanie, Danny, Joe. What was your initial thought about this collection of people?
I think as the people, because you see people go upstairs, you see people come downstairs. I was downstairs. As it started, I was like, I kind of wish I was in the upstairs group, just by the people that were going up there. I did want to be on separate tribes with Carl, though, just so we could like use the connections from both tribes to come together. Debbie, I wish I could have started with, because I would have liked to play with Debbie. I think it would have been a lot of fun, and obviously any other situation for her would have been better than what happened. So, but yeah, based off my tribe, I have a hard time with groups, big groups. I kind of back off of the conversations when everybody's talking. I have a hard time talking over people. I kind of just let them talk and I observe. So at first it was kind of overwhelming when everyone's talking. Joe was like the main one talking a lot. So for me, somebody who has a hard time talking over people like that, and pretty immediately I was like, it's like hard for me to talk over Joe, and it immediately for me puts a target on Joe, and she puts a target on herself by making herself that leader, whether she wanted to be or not. I think immediately everyone pretty much picked up on Joe having that leadership role. As far as everybody else, we get to camp and we break up into like roles. I ended up like kind of migrating to the shelter part of the role, and Melanie was very like pro shelter. This fire is not going to get started, and I agreed. I did not think the fire was going to get started. It was wet, and just based off what I was told, like when I was learning about fire making, it was like you can't make fire when it's wet, and you totally can. It seems like, because it was wet the whole time out there, and I felt like we were always making fires. So that was an interesting thought that happened. But yeah, so. But then I start thinking like, okay, like we're playing Survivor. There's idols. Like I'm getting off at this shelter and I'm going to go get on the fire and go find firewood so I can look around for idols. So I kind of bail on the shelter and just go look for firewood basically, and use that as an excuse to kind of look around for idols. And we'll get into that later on. But yeah,
I guess it's a good subject. So like coming in the game, did you have strategies or things you want to do when you hit the ground, or are you going to kind of figure out as you went?
I wanted to figure out as I went. It's hard. I mean, you can't really like pre-strategize, I feel like, because you really got to know people. It all depends on the players and everything too. In my Meet Me video or my interview, I don't remember what it was, I say that like if I get voted out first, it's because I'm playing too hard, like strategically and talking to everybody. And with the way our camp was set up, it was hard at first to like actually have conversations with people one-on-one, which I think probably helped me. And so, yeah, I mean, I personally liked our camp setup because I felt like you could see everything and know what was happening.
Speaking of idols, what is your philosophy around idols and bandages? Are those things you are actively looking for and gunning for, or do you just kind of want to know where they are and you don't need to have them yourself?
I think ideally I would like to just know where they are. Like my number one having it would be better than me having it, I think. But I like idols. I love them. They definitely adds a dynamic to the game of Survivor. And like it can save you. Like, obviously it saves me at a point in the game. And yeah, like it puts a big target on your back, but if you don't have the idol, you're voted out anyway. So like at least it saves you and gives you somewhat of a chance.
So two of the other opening twists of the season, one is you learn that redemption is in play. And so people voted out, have a chance to get back in the game. How did that factor into your game, or what did you think about that initially?
I love it, especially now thinking about the battle pack. Like, in a game like this isn't real Survivor. We're all putting away our time, and they do on Survivor too. But like, this is a live reality game. It's not the same thing. So, like, giving everybody a chance to stay longer, I think is really cool. And it makes it like, okay, if I get voted out, I have a chance. And I think that if it wasn't my first LRG, I think it would have allowed me to play like harder. I think I would have been less worried about being voted out and played harder at the beginning. Just knowing the fact that I have a chance in a battle bag. But it was my first one, so I was also kind of hesitant to play too hard because I wanted to make some milestones, like make the merge and stuff like that. And then as far as the fire tokens go, I'm 50-50 on it. I don't feel one way or the other, really. Especially the way it worked in this game. It never really felt like it was as much for advantages as it was for like actual like comfort and food, which I think was really good for an LRG.
What about the shot in the dark?
I kind of the same. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. Like, it definitely adds a dynamic and adds more blind sides and splitting votes, which is definitely factors in because obviously whoever you split the vote on is it's like next on the chopping block basically because everyone was willing to let that person go. So it kind of shows the cards a little bit after the vote. But yeah, I'm 50-50 on it.
So you have your first reward challenge is the Quest for Fire, and your tribe ends up winning. Talk to me about this challenge. How was it for you?
Yeah, so I was down there with the puzzle people, which was Trinica and Danny. And we weren't allowed to watch them do the puzzle. I saw it. It was like a 3x3. They seemed pretty confident in it, but we had to turn our backs to them. So keep in mind, my back is to them, and all I hear is like slide piece puzzles moving at like an insane pace, just like smashing boards. And it was done so fast. And then I'm holding the ball, like kind of thinking that Jeff was going to be right on my tail. Jeff looked super athletic. He's smaller, so like he was going to have a good center of gravity holding that thing, like walking. So I was like, all right, I got to move. And so I'm like ready to pretty much run. And then as I'm like power walking kind of, and I'm like, all right, well, he's not coming anytime soon, it seems like. So I'm just going to like make sure I don't drop this thing. And then one of the coolest, the moment that I felt like I was playing like Survivor, when I turned the corner of the house and the people on the mats are standing there, I turned the corner, everybody just is like, whoa, just yelling. That was such a cool moment for me. I don't know if I've said that to anybody, but that was like the moment that was like, whoa, this is so cool.
So your tribe wins, and you learn that the final twist of the season is you have this outpost that players would go to. And so Melissa and Trinica go with Blake and Carl to the outpost. Does anything of note happens when they return to camp with the tarp?
No, they just we sit all down in I believe it was our living room, and they basically just give their story, and it sounded very legit. And honestly, I don't think I ever have another thought about it. Like I was just like, yeah, tarp would have cost that much. Makes sense. I'm super happy you got the tarp. We got two now. We can sleep on one and lay under the other. I never even thought about anything other than that, to be honest.
Over the course of that first day, did you feel like you had made inroads, or did you establish an alliance with anyone at that point?
No, not the first day. It did not start until that night. And is this after? Is the night before the second reward challenge or after?
The second reward challenge will be in day 2.
Okay, so that night, we're all getting things ready. Like we know a storm is coming. We all saw the weather before going in. We're like ready for it. And it gets, I don't know, midnight. I have no idea what time it was. But it starts raining. The people who are sleeping outside of the shelter, like we had it split up pretty well. We had some huge ponchos or whatever. They were like full on tarps for people to sleep on outside of the shelter. So it was clutch to have those if it wasn't raining. But once they came in, like in the shelter, nobody could lay down. We all had to sit up. And obviously they come over the walkie-talkie and they say like their tree got struck by lightning. I don't think many of us, if any of us, believed it at first. It took like a day until they actually, I think production might have actually confirmed it, that they actually got struck by lightning, the tree did. So, but the people, it worked out perfectly. I wanted to stay. Like this was an experience for me. Like I was pretty much never leaving unless everybody left. It was a numbers thing for me though, really. Like if there would have been a minority in the people who stayed at the camp, I would have left with the majority because I think that was, I mean, just from a game sense, I think that's important. But it worked out perfectly. It was 5-5, and I felt like, okay, this is split. Like no big deal. We can all figure this out. And it was what I wanted to do. I never was worried about like safety. I felt like under the tarp. Yeah, it was lightning, full stop. It felt like, I mean, obviously their tree got struck by lightning, but it felt more like flash lightning than it did like actually strikes of lightning. But yeah, it was cool. And we're sitting there. It's the 5 of us, me, Melissa, Ethan, Melanie, and Trinica. And like, we genuinely just bond over the experience. That's when the first, like, okay, the 5 of us, we have half the numbers. Like we can just grab 1 or 2 people or whatever, take majority, and we're fine. And it felt genuine. It really did.
So the next day, you have more reward challenges. You have a vertical table maze. You have the idle hands. Your tribe proceeds to dominate through these reward challenges. How is that?
It's good. This wall though, the puzzle wall or whatever it's called, I felt like I was going to be really good at it, and I love this challenge on the show. So it was very frustrating me that I never got a point. Like I probably should have backed off a little bit, but I was like telling people basically to just go to it, drop it, and get it back to me. I just want to do it. I don't care about how y'all do. And as I'm saying it, I'm like, I got to stop doing that because all these people want to have this experience too. So yeah, luckily we have, I think Melissa, Charlie, and I don't know if it was a third person, Joe, maybe, or maybe somebody got the third one. I don't remember who it was, but yeah, luckily they were able to pull it off and get all 3 in. I got one of the balls. I guess I contributed in that regard. But yeah, so I think after that second reward challenge, I believe I go to the outpost with.
Yes, so you go with Charlie to the outpost with James and Sandra from the Pink Tribe. How was that?
So right before that challenge, I think is when I start having like more one-on-one conversations with people. And we knew at that point, I believe this is when me and Melissa had like our first conversation. We knew that Joe was pretty much the target at this point. And I want to say Joe got the last point of that because she felt like she should go to the outpost because Melissa went to the first one and she couldn't go again. Charlie hadn't been yet. He made one of the points, and I'm pretty sure it was Joe because I remember Joe wanted to go, and I immediately was like, nope, I'll go. I want to go. I want to go. And I made it a point because we didn't want Joe to go and like have a chance at getting anything if she was going to be the first point. And it's funny because before that challenge, someone asked me, I don't remember who it was. like, would you want to go to the outpost? And I remember telling them like, no, I really don't want to go. But then like as it plays out, like I just didn't want Joe to go because of she was the target and I didn't want her to get anything. But yeah, that's how I got to the first outpost.
Yeah, so I believe you and Charlie buy like an idol clue, right?
Yes, that freaking idol clue. So yeah, and props to Charlie. Charlie did really well here in the conversations, I think, with the other tribe, Sandra and James, because I mean I wanted it immediately, but Charlie came up with like the full on numbers of like the tokens, what we could say, and everything. I don't know. I guess I was sleep deprived or something because I could not figure it out. Like I was like, Charlie, just tell me what to say and I'll say it. But we figured it. We figured out we get it. We never were gonna like just open it up in front of the tribe like the other people did. Like
not your favorite strategy.
Yeah, I don't really understand, and it allowed everybody to know at that point that me and Charlie got it as well. Like I wish it could have just been kept a secret, but yeah, I mean, I guess they didn't have as many fire tokens as us. Like we were able to buy something to say like, okay, we actually spent this much on this. Like they weren't really able to do that, so it is a little different. Because honestly, if it wasn't for the advantage, the scroll, I don't think we would have actually bought the dryer thing because I didn't feel like it was that great, but we just wanted to be able to say that we spent this many tokens on something so that we could get the scroll. But yeah, so we read the scroll before we get to the camp at the log that we stopped at. And it's not the easiest. Like as I'm firewood hunting or whatever, I see things. So it does say there's like an X mark. And I immediately knew where that was, but there was a lot of space where that X was. And I mean, I spend the most time looking for this thing. I'm the first person who actually knows like the area of where it's supposed to be at. And I never find that one.
Do you or Charlie ever share the clue with anyone?
I ended up sharing it with Melissa first. And I contemplated like 1,000 times to tell Ethan, and I just ended up never telling him. But yeah, eventually it got to a point where I thought a tribe swap was coming, and I really just wanted to find it before a tribe swap to help really me, Melissa, or another ally in a tribe swap situation. So at that point, I just wanted to find it. And so I told Melissa, she knew where it was. We looked, like she kept lookout when I was looking. I kept lookout when she was looking sometimes. And right before when Melanie was in trouble, I did tell Melanie about it too, to give her a chance to find it as well. Just because I didn't want Melanie to go at all. So if she could find it, that was good too.
And so when do you know roughly when Melissa found it?
It sounds like a few minutes before she went to tribal and played it.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. It was
right.
Asking about.
Yeah. No. It was not when I was on the tribe. It was definitely when they got back to camp after they lost. It was during the 45-minute hour scramble period. So yeah, and the way she finds it, it's her story. I'll let her tell it, but it's wild.
So you have your first individual immunity challenge. This is you're going to kayak out to collect pieces, then go and solve a puzzle afterwards. This also like the last challenges, this continues to go well for your tribe. How is this for you?
So I continued after the reward challenge. I think I heard production might have said it to me. I don't remember how I heard it, but they were like, back this season, that one tribe won like 4 reward challenges in a row, and then they lost the first immunity challenge. So after we won the third one, which was Idle Hands, I believe, which I loved that challenge. That was fun. And I told them, I was like, look, we can't get cocky. Like we got to continue. So I tried to really push that we had to just like not get cocky. And so, yeah, we get to the first one. I was a little worried about kayaking. I had done it one time before in my life and I flipped the kayak. So I was not ready for that. So I was very like, I'll take like this first platform, the second platform. Like, I don't want to go super far out. But it took a lot of pressure off when James fell, right? Like immediately. And it calmed us all down, I think. And I do think we paddled slower, I believe, just to be safe and not flip it as well. but I think that was the right strategy. I got in my boat and felt like way more comfortable than I did back 10 years ago when I tried to kayak the first time. So we get back, and me and German are on the puzzle, and I thought it was going to be how do I explain it? The ones with colors. I think Melanie explained it. There's like colored blocks, and I thought it was going to be a similar thing like
You
that.
can't have the same type of block in the row or column.
Right. So we flip up the flip over the board, and we see it, and I'm like, well, that's not that. But then, like literally 3 seconds in, I immediately think Sudoku puzzle, and it's not a Sudoku puzzle, but it plays very similar to one. Basically, like the colors, they can't. It's kind of like the other challenge too, because the colors can't line up. But like on the fish, there's a orange, blue, red, green. There's different colors on each side of the fish. And it started off with a board, and the board had colors around the board. So you knew like the starting piece to the corners. And then you basically just had to go off of the colors and match it perfectly. And me and German, we worked really well together in that. Like I put together like the first few pieces, I feel like, but a lot of the time we would put it in the wrong spot. Like you kind of had to experiment with certain spots. And like German was so good at fixing the mistake spots, because I was very confused. Like once it was messed up, I was like, oh God, I don't know what to do. But German like saw it, and he was so good with with that. We did great on that challenge together, I thought.
And so after winning that first immunity challenge, you were not going to the first tribal council. How are you feeling at this point in the game?
Oh gosh, I mean that's the first milestone. Like that's the bucket list. Don't be murdered. Don't be first boot. Don't be first boot. Like that's what everybody's probably thinking going into the game. So to make sure we're not first boot. Also, they had to wait until the next morning, I believe.
Yep.
That's stressful too. Like especially with like the weather and everything. Like to go through a whole night after not sleeping and being worried that you could be first boot. Like that's rough. So yeah, all that factored in, and we were thrilled. I mean, we like probably celebrate a little too much after we win, and I think I was probably one of the initiators to that. But I'm just so excited when like we're turning our backs to the people, and there's like this 20-second pause of them like making sure the puzzle's correct, and then it's like, and Okina has won immunity. It was like such a thrilling adrenaline rush. It was like no holding back at that point.
So talking about the strategies, are you starting to hear strategies or alliances being formed over the course of the second day? I know you've talked about becoming close to Melissa and like sharing the idol clue with her and hunting, but did that like group of people who slept outside during the storm, was that like the 5, or how did things work?
No, the first vote was a big group never had a conversation before the first vote. It was a lot of like 2 and 3 people conversations with who's good with who. On the reward challenge where we took a car ride to it was supposed to be a boat ride, but it ended up just being like a walk around and a little bit of food. That factored into how alliance chats work too. Me, Ethan, Trinica, and Hannah were in a car, and pre-conversations, we knew that those were like, me and Ethan were really close at this point too. It was basically me and Ethan were really close. Me and Melissa were really close. And then me and Charlie got close because we looked at the idol clue together. So at that point, that was like my 3, I felt like. And then Melanie was in there too. So me and Ethan say, okay, these people in our car, like this is our chance to talk to Trinica and Hannah about like being in this alliance. We would name who was in it, Melissa, Charlie, and we'd have the 6. And so we have that conversation. It goes well in the car. Well, I find out when we get back, I don't know, maybe later that day, that Hannah felt a little weird about it because she felt like that me and her hadn't had like one-on-one conversations yet. And then I was just ready to be in her alliance with her, which is funny because she was the first person I saw like on the porch. Like I felt really good with just based off like the, hey, the how are you? My name's Larry, just a fake name or whatever we gave. But it never felt like she felt that way. And I tried to like make her feel better, but I don't know if she ever felt great with me. And and that factored in later in the game when she like she wants German to stay, I want Melanie to stay, and I think it kind of puts us at odds a little bit. But I'll tell you this: so Melissa, the reason I have my first conversation with Melissa is because I see her and Hannah go off and have a conversation. They're the first people I see go off and have a conversation. And as I'm very observant, and I think that's very important at the game of Survivor. And I see Melissa as the one who's like, she's the one who's going to be okay on this tribe. And I made sure that I was good with the person I felt like was going to be running the tribe. So I went to her and I was like, look, I want to be number one. It's like, I want to lock in with you. And that's what started it. And I think being observant was like a big factor into how that played out.
You kind of talked that Joe's name was out early as a potential first boot. Were there any other names ever consideration, or was that like over the course of that second day, or was it just like, hey, we have Joe, we don't need to worry about things?
I really think it was mostly Joe. As the time passes, you notice that German slept a lot. Like he was not like talking to anybody. And I think Melanie went over this too. Like she would really try to start group conversations, which I appreciated very much, because it gave me an opportunity to not have to speak over people. I could kind of say my piece when it was like my turn to talk. But German never like said anything. He slept a lot, which props to him for being able to sleep. But in a game that's socially like a big part, I don't know if that's necessarily the right strategy. And to be honest with you, I don't think German makes it past Danny, if not the first boot, if it's not for Hannah, because I saw the conversation that woke German up. I watched Hannah and German go up the hill at the camp. Melissa walked up there like a little bit after that, and the three of them talked up there for like, it felt like an hour. They were up there for so long, and they get back and like it kind of shifts. Like German's name is like, you could tell Hannah was like very good with German at this point, and I also knew, just because that's a long conversation they had, that meant a lot. So yeah, that's I'm trying to think of when after the Joe vote, we split it on Danny. Okay, so Danny, what was the next challenge after? What was the second challenge?
Well, I guess before we dive more into the votes, two questions for you. As we kind of round out day two, this is before the first tribal council. Could you rank the players in the tribe from most least important in your game at this point?
Yeah. I'd say Melissa's number one. Ethan's number two. Melanie's number three. Charlie's number four. Trinica's number five. Hannah's number six. Who am I missing? I know there's Joe. Joe's last.
Danny, Joe, Trinica? Did you say Trinica?
I said Trinica. Fifth. Okay, let me die. So Joe is 10th.
Well, 9th, because you're
9th. Maybe that's what I'm doing. So she's 9th. German's 8th. Danny's 7th. Yeah, who am I? I feel like I'm missing somebody, but maybe I'm not.
I'm looking at the list, and I'm getting it correct. Ethan, Charlie, Hannah, German, Melissa, Trinica, Melanie, Danny, Joe.
Yeah, that's everybody. So yeah,
okay,
I said it.
Yeah. So who would have been your ideal first boot from this tribe? Were you fine with Joe, or is is there someone that you had wished you could have voted out instead?
I was fine with Joe. It was a big part. Like she was very outspoken, and like even when I would have a conversation with her or like with somebody else, she would like jump in and like kind of talk over me while I was trying to have a conversation with somebody else. Or if I was talking to her, she would like maybe get distracted and then just like stop listening to what I was saying. And I don't think she noticed that. And I don't point that out because I don't want to like cause any kind of rift. But it factors into me wanting her out throughout the game. But yeah, I mean, German, from me socially, me and him never really connected. A big portion because I think he stayed in the camp a lot, and it was hard to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody who's always around a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes for Danny too. Both of them stayed in the shelter a lot. So it was always hard to have a conversation with them. So it just started from that.
So day 3, Debbie's voted out from the Nankana tribe. You have that silent relay race where like at different points people kind of talk and they communicate different ways. You're carrying a person on a stretcher. This does not go well for your tribe.
No, it doesn't go well for me at all. So I felt like I was a very big contributor to the reward challenge to this point, the immunity challenge, and all of that. We get to this challenge, and I'm thinking about it and thinking about the roles. I did not want to be a part of the charades, really. I'm not great at charades. I didn't really want to be a part of that, but I also felt like I was best suited to carry the stretcher and like running that distance. It was long. I don't know if anyone's talked about how long that distance was, but it was
long.
like, it was like 100 yards.
Especially when you're carrying a person.
Yeah. And so that was just me carrying the stretcher by myself from the starting thing. And I don't know if you noticed how I had to carry it if you watched it, but I wasn't able to put it around my waist because we tied up too close together. So I couldn't carry it around my waist and hold it like that. So I had to pick it up over my shoulders and carry it on my shoulders. And I went barefoot and it's muddy. And like, that's probably the most dangerous and probably dumbest thing I did out there. Like there was a bar literally at my neck. And all it took, if I fall running right there, which it was slippery, like it's going to hurt bad. But it was also like Jeff is hauling ass running because he's got this little lightweight stretcher. He's just holding on his side. And he's like a marathon runner anyway. So I'm just like trying to keep up to him at this point. We get there. I'm exhausted already. I don't know if it's from like hunger, sleep, what I just did. Like I'm beat immediately. So we get there and, I had already thought about like watching the person, who they have to pass their instructions on to the middle person. And then that person has to then give them to me. I thought about that. And I actually asked production if we could just like watch the first person go, and they said no, but like I could have just done it like they did anyway, but I didn't. I was so exhausted and so tired, like I literally could not even watch Hannah give it to Charlie because I'm just like head down like trying to catch my breath at this point. And so Charlie gets over to me and he's doing like dig, I don't know, I'm like down dig, I'm saying it as he goes. And we get part of it. I think we ended up saying it's like dig down, jump around, and then we get to the 5th word and 6th word, and I don't remember what the 5th around. And then he's doing the corner, and you could see it's like a light bulb goes off in his head. Like, this doesn't make sense. So he goes back to Hannah, and it's not dig down, jump around. But, I mean, it sounds kind of right just because it kind of rhymes. So I could see why he thought that, and I thought that too. And then he goes back, and it's like they've already gone at this point, which they actually, because they gave us 3 warnings as far as like the silent people. They weren't allowed to talk. And James is the first one to say something when he wasn't supposed to. So they had a warning. And I actually thought about this after the fact. Like, I wonder if we could have just kind of
said 2 words, got your 2 warnings, and like moved on. Yeah.
But that's kind of like Bush League, I feel like. So I'm glad we didn't do that at the same time.
After this challenge, Hannah goes with Jeff to the outpost, and they get these mutiny advantages. When did you learn about that advantage?
Hannah told us immediately.
Okay.
She got to the camp. She sat down, living room. This is always where we had our tree mail and like our get back from the outpost discussions. And so she gets back and she tells us immediately. And this factors into later in the game when we tribe swap. But yeah, it's cool. Hannah comes off as like a very loyal person. She's going to play for the team and all this stuff. And I felt like she would if it helped everybody in her alliance. I kind of felt like she would. And yeah, I was cool with it. It didn't seem like it affected me much. So I was happy with it.
Is there much? So, talk about the Joe vote. I guess we've kind of talked about the Joe vote. Is there anything else you want to go into? You mentioned like, hey, there's a vote split. Why was Danny the one being split upon? I Melanie mentioned that Joe was really pushing for Melanie to be voted out at this time.
Yeah. So at this point, Joe and Danny they seem closer. I think other people are saying that they're a little closer than most people. So it felt like, okay, well, we got to split on somebody because one, nobody actually has found the idol at this point, and it's possible that someone already has it. Joe has done the most like walking around camp and just exploring. She was the first one to do it, and all like the big areas where idols could be. Like she was the first person to go to those big spots. So we were very worried that she could have something or play her shot in the dark correctly. So we needed to find somebody to split the vote on. And Danny, it would just happen to be he was the one who he got pushed on. Like she could be closest to Danny. Danny could be close to her. So it became Danny. But after that, we get to after the loss, we sit down in the living room. I'm the first person to like sit down with Joe by herself in the living room. And I'm like, all right, we got to talk. Like, obviously at this point, I just don't want her to like push my name. So I know Joe's the vote. She can say whatever she says. Like it's always going to be Joe at this point. I feel like I'm just trying not to be the person she pushes. So Melanie at this point had already told me that she felt pretty good with Joe. So, and I was close with Melanie. So I was like, it's like not great that she feels good with Joe, that I'm telling her that Joe's the vote. But when Joe throws out Melanie's name in front of like 5 people, I go to Melanie immediately. I'm like, Joe's throwing your name out. And she's like, yeah, well, Joe has to go now. Which she was throwing Melanie's name out. So I wasn't lying or anything. But like, I was kind of shocked Joe threw Melanie's name out because Melanie genuinely felt first or second best, which like it was Danny then Melanie, I felt like, who wanted to keep Joe around. So I think Joe might have thrown out the wrong name there. Not that it probably would have mattered at the end of the day, but it helped me and Melanie because Melanie, if she felt a lot of trust in me when I told her that, immediately Joe threw out her name.
Well, it ends up being a 6-3-1 vote with the split on Danny with Joe voting for Melanie. And Joe is out of the game. This leads to your next immunity challenge, the Steal a Bacon challenge. Do you remember who you went up against?
Oh, yes, I do. So I went up against Maddie P first, and it was like kind of intimidating. The challenge was, and like I knew Blake was fast. I wasn't really ready to go up against Carl yet. Like I just wasn't mentally. And it was between Maddie P and James for me. Like I felt like I could beat both of them. And ends up being Maddie P. And I grab it, and he's like, I get the medicine ball first, and I get to the line, and he can't cross it. And I don't realize until then, I'm like, he's long. Like, I got to get around him. So I just try to juke a couple times, and I finally get by him. And I don't know, I showboat a little bit, and I do like a little Deion Sanders, like in the ball, I'm holding the ball back. And I think it rubbed the other tribe wrong a little bit, especially because we were like on a winning streak. And like, well, they had just won the challenge before, so I guess not really. But
you're tied for immunity challenges, but your tribe has still won 4 challenges total.
Yeah. So I do that immediately. I kind of regret showboating a little bit, but it's not too big of a deal. And then I go up against Carl, and it's like he gets on the mat first, and I'm like, oh shit, here we go. And I'm running. I feel like I could beat him in a race, and I did beat him in the race. But I get to the ball, and he just like comes flying underneath me and grabs it. And so he grabs the ball, and he almost gets it. He almost gets by me. He really did. He juked and almost had me. And then like the last juke, I kind of just guessed where he was going to go, and I guessed right and grabbed him. And then I knew both of us were like ready to pretty much wrestle. And oh, that was intense. That was hard. And right after me carrying that stretcher, I told you I was exhausted from that. Like this was like, felt like right after it, like I was still exhausted, did this. The medicine ball, like made a big difference, like 10 pounds or whatever it was, like was so hard to pick up after like.
Oh, I don't think I ever realized. I just assumed it was like I don't know, like a handball, not that it was like a 10-pound medicine ball.
It's heavy. And so we're going at it. And at first, like it was there was like 2 rough, like slams pretty early into it. and the production's like around us, and they're just like, "Are you okay? Be careful!" Like they're just making sure we're okay, and both of us like we're fine. And I have him; he's like on the bottom. I'm holding him, and we're like out of breath already. We're making our way there. We do our tugging and switching, and I end up with the ball at some point, and I'm on the bottom, and he's got me, and I am like, I don't want to be in this position. Like this is way more uncomfortable than not having the ball and like being on top holding the person. So I pretty much just give Carl the ball back, and I'm like, I don't. You can be on this. I'll just hold you, and then because he's on the left side, so he's close to my mat. Like, yeah, we're far away from it still, but he's on the left side. I have to go a lot shorter distance than he does to get to his mat. So slowly, I'm just like giving everything I can every like 30 seconds, just and just moving him like a foot. I felt like he breaks away at one point and gets a little bit towards the middle, but still on the left side. And this is where we're both exhausted and we're talking a little bit. And finally, we're like, let's just like sit here for a minute and talk. This is when me and Carl have like a pretty good, deep conversation. Like I'm like, I think he tells me like, are we locked in? Is this real? And I'm like, yes, we're 100% locked in. And he tells me, he's like, Kiri's my number one. Like, just have Kiri's back if you can, whatever. And I'm like, Melissa's my number one. Have her back. Like, we're good. We're locked in, Carl. I promise. We're good. And then we get to right when I finally get to the mat, I did. I said, Carl, let me have it. And he did. He let me have it. I mean, immediately he got up and like let me go get the ball. And I mean, he played a little defense with the mat, but I think that was just for show to make it look like he was trying a little bit. Yeah, I think he would have had it. And would I have won without him doing that? I don't think so. I was beat. I could not like move anymore. And I don't know. I think we would have just timed out. I don't think either one of us would have won. We would have both just laid there, I think.
Question from Blake. Why not? Why would you not want to go against him?
Blake was fast. I feel like Blake was the fastest person out there. And I'm athletic and I can run a little bit, but I always felt like Blake was faster than me. So yeah, I just think if he gets to the ball first, I wouldn't have been able to really keep up with it if he got it. And yeah, Carl said
Carl's saying I was also beat.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't want to go up against Blake. And I went up against Blake in the idle hands. I had gone up against Jeff. I forgot about Jeff. I had gone up against Jeff in like the first challenge or first reward challenge and the stretchers. So like I didn't really want to go up against Jeff again. So yeah, just different people really too.
You lose the challenge. This ends up being a very straightforward tribal council because very early on, Danny announced to the tribe, hey, I'm not feeling 100%. It needs to be me.
Yes, he does that. And honestly, like I think it happened in the past season of Real Survivor. Another person's like, not like another person's trash is another person's treasure, but it is a saying like that.
Yeah.
Where like it was bad for him, but honestly, I think it was the best thing out of all the people left on my tribe. I think him doing that helped benefited me the most because if he doesn't do that, Melanie's name was on the table a vote earlier. And I was pretty much ready to go to war for Melanie at that point, but it was going to be risky for my game. And yeah, I mean, him doing that saved me around to like, start those conversations about like, let's save Melanie, let's get rid of somebody else type thing.
Why was Melanie's name coming up?
I don't really think it had anything to do with Joe throwing it out there. I think this is when the six, oh no, that was after Danny vote when the 6-person chat happened. But I think it just came down to Hannah like had German's back. Like that was her outside connection of the group. And German was close to Danny. And so I think it would have just fell back on Melanie. That's who Hannah would have wanted out. And I knew Hannah had a lot of power in the tribe too, because it was basically like Melissa was like the center or nucleus. And then I felt like it was like me, Hannah was like right there. And then it was like branched off of us. I mean, I think Hannah would have just preferred to be Melanie. I think that's where the complications would have happened.
So Danny goes out. Talk to me about this conversation afterwards that brings the six together.
Yeah. So after that, we're having like our one-on-one conversations, and then at one point, like we all six just go to the living room, and Melanie and German are just sitting in the shelter. It's like I feel bad because they're just sitting there knowing that what we're doing. But yeah, that's when we talk about like who's splitting on Melanie, who's splitting on German.
Mm-hmm.
And before this, so me and Hannah had a conversation, and I straight up told Hannah, like, look, I know you want to keep German, you know I want to keep Melanie, and we give our pros and cons of like keeping both or keeping one or the other. But like we're both part of the sixth, and we still at this point, like we still want to protect each other.
Mm-hmm.
We also just are trying to fight for our ally outside of our six. And I think we both understood that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I actually thought that Melissa was maybe a little closer to Hannah than me.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like Melissa could choose Hannah's side. And then it wasn't up until like after, or maybe it was right before our 6-person chat. Melissa told me, she was like, I want German out. Like, I want to keep Melanie. I feel really good with Melanie.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, shoot. Like, we're good. We got this now. But yeah, I mean, we get into that vote, and I like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Like it still would have been German. I think German getting the scroll at the tribal council that he got up and beat Melanie to. It made us go from a 4-2 split to a 3-3 split.
Mm-hmm.
It changed, and it was actually so like 5 of them are sitting on one side of tribal council, and I'm sitting on the other side, like by myself. And I can see all of them whispering. I'm like, I don't really care. Like, I feel good with the 6. Like, we're good. Y'all just like tell me what to do after y'all talk. We all are on the other side, whatever. And Melissa walks over to me and she tells me, okay, we're switching it to a 3-3 split on the revote. German goes. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm cool with that. I don't remember. I think this has been a talk in our chat.
It's because I keep asking. So I'll admit, I'll message Melanie and say, "Hey Melanie, I'm trying to figure something out. Can you please message your cast? Let me know." And she comes back. It's like, no one knows what happened. They're like, check the tapes. I'm like, I don't have the tapes.
I'm 99.9% sure I voted German. I've told everybody I told German I voted German, and so. Unless I just literally lost my mind and don't remember, then I voted German. So it's between Ethan and Melissa on who voted there. But I will say this: I don't think it was a mistake. Like it's whoever doesn't remember doing it, because I think we split it. I think everybody voted how they were supposed to split. Another thing that went wrong that didn't necessarily have to is just who we said was voting who. Like, if we would have just said me, Melissa, Ethan, Trinica vote, like one of them, then it would have been okay too. But we had like Charlie mixed up into it, and he was able to flip his vote. And flip it on Melanie, which, it kind of pissed me off because I was really close to Melanie at that point. And Charlie, like, he plays it up like it's a big mistake. Like he plays it up like it's Melissa's fault, actually, because he says Melissa told him to vote a certain type of way, and then it confused him and he voted, and it was just like it gave him the numbers, and he goes into the shelter and like cries after tribal council. And like, I don't, if he cried and it's like a show, like, wow. But I genuinely felt like he felt bad about it. Like it was a mistake. Something happened. Like he felt bad about it. And I went up to him and I was like, dude, it's fine. Like it's whatever. Like, let's go on with it. It happens, blah, blah, blah. And I find out later on in the game that, he did it like 100%. After the tribe swap, I find out that he pretty much does it to save German. And at that point I was like, all right, well, we're not allies anymore.
Yeah, it's a really interesting alliance of 6 that came together, where like everyone's jostling to save an ally, and it's like who's losing their +1. This doesn't sound like your ideal 6, right? Because like you don't sound super close to Hannah, but you're close to Melissa, and Hannah's close to Melissa, and like Melissa's kind of bridging a lot of gaps here.
I felt fine with Hannah. Hannah didn't
Mhm.
feel fine with me, is what I think. She's
Okay.
going to have to give her standpoint, but I knew that, and I was fine with the 6. Actually, it was actually what I would have preferred because it allowed me to have Melanie as an outside number.
Mhm.
If I ever wanted to make a move on the 6, they could never really. I feel like it made them never be able to make a move on me if I had
Yeah.
like somebody on the outside of
Well, because then
that.
you just split to a 4-3 in your favor.
Yeah, and so it actually felt pretty perfect for me until the point where it came down to, Melanie got voted out, and it wasn't supposed to happen. Like there's so many factors that happened that screwed her there. Like
Mhm.
if she gets to scroll, German's gone. If we changed who's voting who with the split, German's gone. Like it's so many different things.
What would happen if you went to tribal council one more time as a group?
Um,
What would you have liked to have happen if you went to tribal council again as that group?
German.
Okay.
Yeah, I would prefer German voted out. I just never really had a conversation with him. Like I said, he slept a good bit at first. And let me think. So Hannah, I think at this point, Melissa would have been with me. Ethan would have been with me. Charlie wouldn't have voted me.
Mm-hmm.
But his relationship, like he was somehow, I don't really understand. He was like close with Hannah and German, but like German, I felt like never really felt good with Charlie. And so it's weird. Like Hannah did make it sound like she would have cut German next. Like in our
Mm-hmm.
group conversations with people, Hannah made it sound like German still she would have voted him next. But if it came down to it, Hannah, German, I don't. Maybe if they have Hannah, German, Charlie, Trinica, they technically could have taken the numbers and voted out
Mm-hmm.
like me or Melissa or Ethan. But Trinica and Ethan were really close at this point, so it wouldn't have been Ethan. But I don't think that would have happened. I think it would have been Hannah or German if we went back. But I could be wrong. I mean, that's hard to.
Well, I'll talk to the people and see what they say.
Yeah.
So it's day 4. There are 15 people left in the game. What better time than to have a tribe swap? And so the tribe swap happens, and you are now on the new Yonkana tribe, and it's a very interesting tribe. So from your original Okina, it's you, German, Hannah, and Charlie, which is an interesting group of people that we'll talk about. And then you have Blake, Kiri, Sandra, and Shauna. And so let's start by talking about the Okina people you swap with. How do you feel being in a situation with German, Hannah, and Charlie?
I'm still at this point. I think Charlie, like, I don't think he did it intentionally to mess me up. So I feel good with Charlie on my tribe. Hannah, I'm like, we've had our like who we want to keep, but I still feel like we've protected each other. German, I had just told that I voted, but I'm the type of person who, like, if you vote me, like it's a game. There's a lot of game left to be played.
Mm-hmm.
It was a split. Like everyone knew about the split. Just because I wrote your name down doesn't mean like I was any worse than the other people who did it. Like it was still everyone was part of the plan. But German always like made me feel like I was the one who like was the worst out of it, which I mean, technically Hannah saved him, so I get why Hannah wasn't. Technically Charlie flipped his vote. Like I get why I was like more so he didn't feel good with. I get it. But I don't feel great with the swap. But then from the non-Kana people, like Blake, we swap and immediately Blake, like, all right. So first of all, Blake gave eyes to like everyone. Apparently, he just does this thing with his eyes that just like makes you think that he wants to work with you, which like it's a really good move. That you get a lot of people to think that you want to work with them, Blake. So if you're listening, you should
keep it up.
Yeah, because it works. And so he immediately tells me, he's like, look, they just left me out of the vote. They blindsided James and me. Like, I'm ready to flip. Like, he tells me immediately, and I'm like, cool, great. The problem is the 4 of us are not voting together on Arcana. So you can flip all you want. It's not going to matter because these people are probably not voting together either.
Did you think that German was likely going to flip it on you?
I don't know. I didn't necessarily think he was going to flip on me yet. I still felt like we could vote together. I guess I wouldn't say that we weren't going to vote together. Like, it was possible, I felt like. But as we swap, we get to camp, and I watch these conversations having. All right, so first of all, I can be a very emotional person. Like, I cry in movies. Like, I'm a big crier, to be honest with you.
We'll talk about that challenge later. Don't worry.
So Danny's like is my first cry moment when he gives his speech. Like, everybody's bawling in that circle when he gives his speech about wanting to leave the game. Everyone's crying. Whatever. So we get to this tribe swap. Hannah, let me think. Hannah goes off and talks with like Shauna and maybe Sandra. Shauna and Sandra are talking. Charlie and Curie go off and talk. German and Hannah are going off to talk. Me and Blake are pretty much like felt like just us. And this is where like I use my observation skills, I think, the most. And I was able to like literally, I pinpointed it so fast of like who was with who on that tribe, like immediately. And we go into the next challenge, I believe, which is the blindfold one.
The blindfold challenge, yep.
Yeah, so Blake is loud. So he wants to be the caller. I am like, cool, caller, great. And I really wanted to be the blindfold part. Like, I've always loved that. I thought I'd be really good at it. And I told Blake, I was like, just tell me, like, focus on me. Yes, get everybody else, but like focus on me because I will literally power walk, run to these pieces. There wasn't even many things of obstacles to hit on the way. So I tried to get him to focus on me the most. And I find out later on that apparently he told people that he was going to try to throw it. And this might be where Charlie lied a little bit because Charlie told me he was throwing it to get me out. And I immediately go into like panic mode. This is after we win the challenge. He tells me that, and I'm like, well, thank God we won. But now I'm in full freak out mode, and I'm like trying to have these conversations, and I'm talking to Hannah and German, and I'm like bawling. Like, I am just literally can't talk, crying, like pleading my life to Hannah and German. Like, I swear to God, if y'all save me here, like I will literally vote with you, never vote you out this whole entire game, and just giving it everything I can. And Hannah and German literally are looking me in the face and like, okay. Like, not even like trying to make me feel like they are agreeing to it at all. And like, it was wild. And then like, it made me lose a little bit of trust in Blake. I wish I would have gone to Blake and asked him that, like, one-on-one. And I probably would have if we had lost, like in the scramble period. It sounds like Blake was maybe throwing it based off his deep dive a little bit. But it wasn't to get me out is the vibe I got. He just wanted to kind of like make his original tribe people go off into like areas in the challenge, I guess. I don't know. That's the vibe I got. And so yeah, I was a mess. And then yeah, that was how that tribe swap went.
Yeah. And anything to say about Shauna, Sandra, Curie?
Oh gosh. Shauna, so Melissa had pointed out to me some of the connections in the game, like from LRG. She knew them, and she knew that Shauna had won a game. She pointed it out to me that Shauna had won a game and to watch out for her. Didn't make me want to like full on target her or anything, but it just made me keep an eye on her. And like, I saw her and Sandra having a good conversation for a while. They were going off talk a lot. So I knew they were locked in together. So I don't know if this is like, if I bond with older women or if I align with, like, that's who I align with a lot, because Melanie, I really wanted to work with her. And when I saw Sandra, she was one of the first people that I really, really wanted to work with. I liked her accent. Like, she was cool. Like, I really wanted to work with her. And she would not give me the time of day on that tribe swap. And like, it drove me crazy. Like it pissed me off so much. And I end up telling her that when we get to the merge, but we'll get into that too. But so yeah, I mean, Kiri and Charlie, I pick up on pretty fast that they built a pretty strong relationship quickly, which helps them later in the game. Nobody really knew about Kiri and German's relationship pre-game. Yeah, I mean, Sandra, German, I didn't really know about either. So, like, all that definitely could have screwed me on that tribe. It sounds like Blake would have been the first vote if I didn't play my advantage. But if it wasn't Blake, it was me. And if we go to another tribal, it's me. It's 100,000%.
Your advantage or Hannah's advantage?
Hannah's advantage.
So talk to me about this. So like Hannah has this mutiny advantage. Are you asking her for it? Are you talking, say, hey, we need to hand it to someone from Original Green because they're outnumbered on Okina 2.0? What's going on with that at this point?
No, none of that.
Okay.
No conversation happens at all about her advantage. And
so you're surprised by what happens then at the next challenge.
Well, we're shocked with who gets voted out.
Yeah, Jeff is home.
Yeah, I mean, numbers wise, it blew our minds. And then, like, there's some commotion. When we get to the mats, like, there's some looks, there's some help, there's some conversations going on. And Hannah gives it to Melissa. And at this point, I didn't know Melissa and Ethan. I didn't know Ethan was trying to vote out Melissa. And they're my number 1 and, like, 2 at this point. And so I look at Ethan, and I'm like, dude, I'm screwed. Like, help. Like, whatever you can do, help, something. And Melissa looks at Ethan, looks at me, and she's like, do you need this? And I'm like, yes. And she, without never thought about it twice. God, I freaking love Melissa. This was awesome. And she just threw it to me or gave it to me, whatever it was. And I get it in my hands, and I'm like, wait, let me think about this. Am I supposed to? I just kind of pause and freeze for a second. And she's like, play it. And I'm like, oh, okay, play it. I'm playing it here. And I play it, and like, oh my God, my mood changes so much. Because I was like walking to that challenge. I knew that I had been told Blake threw the challenge to get me out. I had these bawling conversations with Hannah and German. Like, I was worried that I was screwed. And when I got on that tribe, it was like me, Melissa, Ethan, trying to cook Carl. I'm like, I'm about to be chilling. And yeah,
because this feels like one of this. I don't think it's. I would put this up there as one of the defining moments of the game that really kind of sets the tenure of things to come. Because Hannah, again, this is just based off reactions, is not happy with you ending up with her advantage and using it.
Yeah, I'm sure she's not. Man, I give zero craps about it. So yeah, I mean, somebody had mentioned that they don't know if it was like allowed, but like because it was supposed to be told to production, but like we were literally doing it in front of production. Like she gave it to Melissa, everyone saw it, production saw it. Melissa gave it to me, everyone saw it. So like I don't see why it wouldn't have been allowed. I don't know how else you really do it. Yeah.
So you bounce to Okina. Jordan bounces to Nankana, and of the two, you end up having made the very right choice because you will go on the immunity streak, and you'll be immune. You'll win the next 3 immunity challenges. So you have the crate endurance challenge, you have hot pursuit, there's a beanbag toss and puzzle. How are these challenges for you?
Gosh, being paired with Carl on the crate challenge was like the worst thing in the world. Carl's legs were just moving all over the place, and like everyone else is like rock solid, and me and Carl are just like moving the crate all the time. But it did make it pretty fun. It was kind of cool. Like they always thought we were in trouble, so they didn't put many weights in our basket because they always thought we were going to drop without having to add more weight. So that actually kind of worked out pretty well. But Carl beasted through it. I beasted through it. Our whole team beasted through it. And that was a lot of fun being able to like swap and then win. And then, yeah, Carl said we didn't fall. Yeah. So back on the Nankana swap tribe, they tell us the story about the lightning tree and they tell us like what their, oh, hold on, let me back up. Okay. So me and Shauna have our one-on-one conversation after the tribe swap. And I think Sandra was there too, actually, maybe. And I tell them, about the tribe swap advantage, and they had no clue that Jeff had it apparently, and they had just learned when I told them, which I was kind of like, oh, oops, I don't know if I was supposed to say that because I just assumed that Jeff told them for some reason or didn't really think much of it, but so that happened. But okay, so they're talking about the idol clue that they got from the same time we got it, and they say like they reading what they think is the clue: lightning tree, tribe flag, like where it struck. That's where the clue is. That's where the idol is, something like that. And it immediately pointed at the tribe flag. We get to the Okina tribe, and we're like walking into camp. We put our stuff down, and I'm like, look, we took forever to find our first idol. Like, it's not going to be as hard as our first idol was. Theirs was hidden under their tribe flag. Like, I'm just going to go look at our tribe flag. That makes sense. It was just played. It's going to be rehidden. And I find it within 5 seconds. I walk into camp, walk back to the flag, grab it, put it in my pocket.
Is it on the flag, beneath the flag?
It's behind it. So it's like tied to the post behind the flag. And it took me, I had my clue. Melissa found a idol clue on the mat at a challenge. She told me, she read the clue to me after I told her about my clue. And so I knew the 2 clues. And then I knew German's clue because he told Trinica, and Trinica told me what it said when German got his from the tribal council that he grabbed from Melanie. So I had 3 clues, and I couldn't find the first idol, and I find the second idol without a clue at all. It's like, what is happening?
I played a game this past weekend, and post-game production said, "You all sucked at finding idols. Here's the list of things we did progressively over time to make it easier and easier, to the point where we had a giant arrow in the ground, and people still kicked the arrow away and didn't even walk down it."
Oh, that just reminded me. So I knew where the X was for the idol clue. And so I got to the X. It's like a tree. They were crossing paths or whatever. And I knew that's where it was. So after I read the clue, I kicked down the crossing tree so that like
no one could find it.
No one could find it anymore. But that was kind of something that nobody really knew I did.
When you're on this Akina 2.0 tribe, right, there's probably some fallout still from that last tribal council. What was your reaction to hearing how that went down?
I mean, Ethan and Melissa were my number 1 and number 2, but I knew Ethan had already told me that he was like ready for Melissa to go. Like, even on original Akina, Ethan had been throwing out Melissa's name. And I'm just like in the middle of this, like, Ethan, like, no. We're not doing that. just stop. I was basically just calming him down. So for him to actually like, I find out that he actually tries to pull the trigger, and that
he takes the shot and misses.
Yeah, and like to find that out, it's like, okay, well, let me just like be the Band-Aid for these 2 people, and yeah, I mean it. I guess seemingly works. Like I'm like, okay, Melissa, I'll talk to Ethan. Like I'll get Ethan back on track. Ethan, I'll talk to Melissa. She'll be okay. And yeah, I mean, it pretty much works out. I don't find out until then that Ethan and Maddie actually know each other, which I understand why Ethan like wouldn't want Maddie out, but I don't know why Ethan didn't just vote Jeff out. Like that had no impact on him and Maddie's game, I felt like. And I told Ethan that. I was like, because he says he was between a rock and a hard place. And I'm like, you really weren't. Like you could have just voted out Jeff. And they kept Maddie, and then like later, if you go to another tribal council, like
Melissa,
yeah, maybe that, or even like Jordan's still there. If Jordan probably doesn't swap tribes, if Ethan doesn't, well, maybe she would still, but so yeah, I don't know. Jeff was somebody who he could have voted. I felt like without being in a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, because that was interesting to see that Ethan is going to vote opposite of everyone again at the next tribal council anyways, but he's kind of still brought back in and said, hey, all's forgiven, we're still a group. And so I thought that was interesting to see that he jumped ship but not really got back in, or was able to get back in.
That tribe were like the best moments of the game. Like the moments we had on that tribe, everyone's going to say this because they were just so genuine. We laughed for like hours upon hours, like crying, laughing, all of us under the shelter. Matty P, it's like dude's a legend. Like he won for a reason. Like he's hilarious. Everyone loves him. We had a conversation pretty immediately after I swap. I'd say 30 minutes after. He basically pulls me aside and's like, what can we do, man? Like, I know I'm left here, like I'm screwed. Like, is there anything we can do? Like, and I'm just like I don't know what to tell him. I'm like, this is my Okina people. Carl like just flipped to save my number one after me asking him to save my number one in the wrestling thing. Like, I'm fully in with Carl at this point. He just basically flipped on his OG alliance to like prove to me that he's with me. Like, I'm not voting Carl out either. Like, I'm not voting Ethan out. I'm not voting Trinica out. I'm not voting Melissa out. Like, I don't want to vote you out either, Maddie, because I like you. And as the tribe keeps winning, it just gives Maddie. I told Maddie this. I was like, just keep working it. Like, you're so likable. I could tell it immediately. I was like, just keep talking to people. Like, you're so likable. Like, it could change things. Like, just keep doing it. And he does. And like, it almost changes things because we keep winning and we get to 11, I think it was. At this point, we think one person's coming back from the battle back. I never considered two. And so Maddie had actually counted how many stools was at tribal, and he said it was 12. So we were like, all right, we get to 11, the battle back, one person comes back. So we get to 11, we win. We think we're like merging. We're like the Musty Misfits, the 6 of us. We got the numbers. Like, if they bring a battle back, it's 6-6. Like, they can't do anything. Like, we're good. And yeah, obviously we go back to one more challenge, and I feel like I don't. It's my probably worst or second worst challenge performance, other than maybe the stretcher. The knots. I mean, swimming, I was okay. I went twice, I think, and I was like average speed. But the second knot like got me so bad. And I don't think anybody knows this, but as I was swimming around, it probably karma. I actually swam around one of the boards and tried to tighten one of the other tribes' knots. So it's probably karma that we lost, but I don't know. Nobody said we couldn't do that. So
before we get into the scramble, like, you're watching Blake goes out from Non-Kana 2.0, which you're like, yeah, kind of expected. Yeah. And then Shauna goes out, and then Jordan goes out. What's your thought when you're seeing the boot order from the other tribe?
I am mind blown. Like, I don't understand how Shauna like was the vote there. Like, I mean, I get Kiri flipped. And I mean, I don't know why really she flipped. Like, I really don't. Like, I haven't felt like Shauna and her were close. Sandra and her were close. But I maybe should be able to give more insight on it. From the outside looking in, it feels like basically she had the pregame relationship with German and stuff like that. And maybe that factored into her flipping. And then I knew her and Charlie had built, like, they were talking immediately when we tribe swapped, and they bonded pretty quickly. So I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. And then to find out about the like shot in the dark and like that being played correctly and all that, yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
So you lose this challenge. Is it Maddie P? Is it just a done deal, or so? What? Talk me through the intricacies to figure out who's going home here. Because the question is, if it's not Maddie P, then who?
Yeah. So we find out that somebody sees Sandra give Maddie P like a scroll, and we're all worried about it being an extra vote, a Stigla vote, an idol clue, an idol, like all kinds of things. And we're running through like what we can do with people, and me, Ethan, Trinica, Melissa have a conversation. Like, all right, we're splitting on Carl and Maddie. And then I think we tell Ethan that Carl will go on the revote. Just because we knew he was close to Maddie at that point, and we didn't want Maddie to play an idol if he had an idol. And so as we're going on, like, Maddie's feeling super worried. So if it's an idol, he's probably playing it. And I'm talking to Trinica, like, we're good on the Maddie playing. It seems like us four, me, Trinica, Melissa, Carl, voting Maddie. We're leaving Ethan out of it. Like, it's pretty much a done deal. And then I'm talking to like Melissa, and we're like trying to figure out what to do with this idol. If it's an idol, if it's an extra vote, like, it's two huge different things, because if it's an extra vote, you can't split the votes. Because then him and Ethan have the numbers. If it's an idol, then you have to split the vote. So it's like two big things. I'm sitting there, and I don't know. It's like we're thinking about the safest thing to do to make sure one of us are not idled out, I told Melissa this. I'm like, we can do a 3-2-1 and blindside Ethan. And at this point, like, Carl just saved Melissa.
Yeah.
Melissa's my number one. Ethan tried to flip on Melissa. Melissa did not try to flip on Ethan. So at this point, I'm on Melissa's side. And I'm like, this is the safest thing to save us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm running through. I ran the plane with Carl. I ran the plane with Melissa. And then Melissa finally is just like, she seems super stressed over everything. And she's like, just tell me what to do. You got this vote. Just tell me what to do this vote. And so we're like about to walk into tribal. And I have like a light go off in my head. And I'm like, Sandra just lost Shauna. Like Shauna, and they were close. I was on that tribe. I know they were close.
Mm-hmm.
Sandra would not give Maddie P an idol knowing that she was in like danger over there. So I'm like, it's not an idol. It's just not. And if it's an idol, like Carl will go. It'll be Carl, and which is very unfortunate. And I wouldn't want Carl to go, but I really, at that point, felt like it wasn't an idol.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay. Well, me, Carl, Melissa, Trinica can just vote Maddie P, and he'll go and leave Ethan out of it. And yeah, it works out. Me and Trinica are sitting next to each other at tribal, and she's like, are we good? We're like whispering, are we good? I'm like, yes, we're good. The plan's good. And she's like, are you blindsiding me? And I'm like, no, I'm not blindsiding you. She's like, if you're lying to me right now, you're the best liar in the freaking world. I'm like, I'm not freaking lying to you. And we're just like whispering this back and forth, and it's really funny. But yeah, apparently she was like really debating on voting with Maddie and Ethan there, and then forcing us to go into like a 3-3 revote.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm not flipping my vote, and Melissa's not flipping her vote, and Carl's not flipping her vote. So Trinica would have just flipped her vote back, I think, on Maddie P anyway.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Had this tribe gone to tribal council one more time, what would have happened?
Gosh. I think Ethan goes.
Okay.
But it would have been, I really wouldn't have wanted to do it.
If you have any doubts, let Melissa confirm. Ethan would go all caps. Sorry, Ethan.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan would have gone. I would have hated it. Me and Ethan bonded so much. Ethan was hilarious. Maddie was hilarious. That tribe. I cannot over exaggerate.
Ethan, I think I go.
Yeah. It would have been, that tribe was hilarious, and anybody going, like Maddie, we genuinely all hated voting Maddie, I think too, just because of like how great we all bonded. Ethan.
So you make it to the merge. Well, you first don't know if it's a merge. You're shown who's come back from redemption. Now, what's interesting about this redemption is, first of all, not everyone goes to redemption. Only 7 of the players go. And second, it is very few players from your tribe. You have Joe and Melanie from your original tribe, and then from Noncano, you have Debbie, Jeff, Blake, Shauna, Maddie P. Who would have been your ideal 2 to come back?
Anybody but the 2 that came back.
I don't even know that Shauna's not ideal. I think the problem is with Shauna and Maddie P together, that's not ideal.
Yeah, exactly. It was like a worst case scenario. All right, 1 person coming back instead of 2 is much better for us too, because like, I don't know, it just changes it. And then it being 2 people, because then if it's just 1 person and I play the auto correctly, then it's 6-6 or
6-5.
Yeah, 6-5. Then we have the numbers. So like that's a big change. And since it's 2 people, yeah, I mean, Maddie, I was naive to think Maddie would probably come back and work with us after what happened. Who my ideal people? Melanie. I mean, she Amos asked me, like, I think after he told us the battle pick people were coming back, I think I was the first person he asked, like, who do you want to see and who do you think it'll be? And I everyone at this point, at least from the original Okina, knew me and Melanie were close. So I was like, I don't care. I'll say I want Melanie back. And then I think I picked Blake as the person that I thought would come back, which Blake would have been good for me. Melanie, Debbie. Joe, I was like, yeah, maybe not.
I don't know what Joe would have done at the merge.
Yeah, she would have been a wild card, I think. The whole entire, which would have been fun. I think Joe would have been a really fun character in the merge because of how it played out.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been cool. But who am I missing? So Jeff.
So you had Jeff, Maddie P, and Blake for the men. So you wanted Blake. For women, it was Shauna, Melanie, Joe, and Debbie, and you wanted Melanie.
Yeah. Jeff, I mean, Debbie would have been good too, but Jeff would have been like, I would have thought Jeff would have been okay for me because I felt like we did some challenges together and we kind of bonded based off being like in the athletic portions of challenges.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing how close he is with Hannah, like now after the game, like that would have been bad for me too, I think.
Mm-hmm. So I guess so Maddie P and Shauna return. You have your merge feast. Tell me about your merge feast and what your initial thoughts of where this merge is going to go. Was it going to be original Okina versus Nankana? Was it going to be swap tribes? Was it going to be something else?
No, I mean, we just thought it was going to be kind of a mix. Like Carl thought he was going to pull in Kiri, and I was kind of like, cool, yeah, I'm fine with that. But I told him, I think when he said that, like, keep in mind, Charlie and Kiri are close now. Like I pointed that out to him because I picked that up, and then like Melissa thought she could pull Hannah back in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, work her. Like, I'm cool with that. But I remember talking, like, when we were the Musty Misfits on the Okina 2.0, like, this is where me and Melissa had, like, our probably first, like, I don't know if it was an argument, but, like, disagreement, maybe. Because I was like, we had conversations on the Musty Misfits that Hannah needed to be the first person to go. Or German. It was German or Hannah. I don't remember who it was at this point. I think it was German, actually. But they were so close. It was like the same person, basically. And so we made a point. Like, these are the people we're targeting at the merge. And then when the merge happens, and Melissa is like, hold on. I want to try to pull in Hannah now. And so we get into a little bit. But this is how close. Like, me and Melissa were so close in this game that we were able to have a disagreement. And then, like, totally still be locked in together. So we had that challenge where we stay up all night. And, you know, when I walking to the challenge with Carl, and Carl says this in his last deep dive, he asked me how long I'm going to stay. And when he asked me the question, I genuinely was like, in my head, like, oh, I'll stay all night. And then I get to my square and I immediately get so bored and so cold. I'm in this tank top. And like, I don't even think I have shoes on. I think I have flip-flops on. I'm pretty sure I have my flip-flops on at this point. And it's cold and wet. It's like dewy on the grass. And I'm like, the production comes around and tells us the rules, which takes them like 20 minutes to start the challenge. I'm like already ready to go before it even starts. And I tell them, who was it? Was it Nate? I don't remember who it was, but I tell them, they're like reading the rules to me, and I'm like, I'm leaving when this starts immediately. You don't have to read the rules to me. And so he's just like, I appreciate you letting me know that, so I don't have to say these. So yeah, pretty soon after me going to that spot, I knew I was dipping out. I wanted to have the conversations with people and then look for the merge idol.
So talk to me about, so you have the idol from your swap tribe. Did you have any clues or knowledge of where the merge idol was?
Yes. Okay. So the merge feast, we had talked about being ready to look for clues in the merge feast on the Okina 2.0. And we see all the food. Pete's bringing out the food. He brings out the fries. The fries are literally the perfect place to put the idol clue. I am the first person. I look at Pete and I'm like, here, hand me the fries. Hands me the fries. I do a deep grab into the fries. I very much consider pouring them out. Like, just don't look. That's how confident I felt like they were in there. But I did a deep pull, try not to make it look super obvious what I'm doing, and don't grab anything. I look for as quick as I can and don't see anything. I pass it off. And I don't find out they were actually into the fries until like after Kiri finds the idol. She ends up telling me where the clue was.
And so what's interesting about this merge is you've actually met everyone, right? So there's no one who's new to you in this merge because of you being on both swap tribes. What are your priorities coming to the merge? What are you trying to do?
Priority number one is to tell Sandra how I felt like after the tribe swap, how she like genuinely, I told her this. I was like, she made me feel like super ostracized on that
Mhm.
tribe. And that's like what initially got me so emotional, I felt like, because to me, she was somebody I really wanted to work with. Like
Mhm.
looking at her initial reaction, like, and to her, like not wanting to have a conversation with me, it seemed like
Mhm.
it just was like driving me crazy. So my number one thing was like, talk to Sandra, like, let's see if I can do something here. And it starts off okay. Um, I tell her like we have our game conversation. Like I'm talking about who I would like to go, and I tell her at this point, if you're looking at it from like who voted who on that tribe,
Mhm.
it makes no sense that all of them would vote together. Like it just doesn't. And I'm like, Sandra, I'm down to vote German. German just like tried to vote you out or voted out
Mhm.
Shauna, one or the other. And like, why would you want to work with German? And I tell her that, and she's like, no, I don't want German to go. And I'm like, what? And then, so I'm like, why not? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And she throws Charlie's name out to me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I don't like really want to do Charlie, but I just like, I don't say no, but
Mhm.
I'm like not agreeing to it. Like, I kind of just like say, why not German? Like, it makes like, let's do that.
Mhm.
And pretty immediately, she goes to German and Charlie and tells them that I threw out both of their names, which I do throw out German's name, and German probably expects that. But I did not throw out Charlie's name. Sandra did that. And Charlie comes up to me, which I appreciate so
Mhm.
much that he did not just take Sandra's word for it and like assume that I threw out his name. He came to me and said, like, Sandra said you threw out her name. And I told him, I was like, I swear, like I did not. She did it. I just was like having the conversation, like not even agreeing to it. And I think he believed me, which I just really give him credit for as far as like not just completely believing her. But yeah, and then that's all like during the like they're still doing the challenge at this point. Like there's only some of us back at camp, like trying to
Mhm.
get wood together and the fire started and looking like I'm looking for idols and like people are looking for idols at this point. So yeah.
So, talking to Sandra is a priority. Were you focusing more on your originals or your swap tribe alliance, or are you kind of going back to those other original Kingdom members? So Hannah and German talking with them, or is it like, or do you feel like there are battle lines being drawn very quickly between these two swap tribes?
I focused on Charlie a good bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually that night, I was genuinely getting numbers together to get German out. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
actively talking to people. And Melissa hears it, like hears after Sandra tells German, German tells Hannah, Hannah tells Melissa, like Tony's coming for German. And Melissa doesn't know this. I was doing it without Melissa because I knew Melissa didn't want to do it. Melissa wanted to work with Hannah. But I was just like, this is what I felt like was right to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was pushing it myself. I had Ethan. Like I was basically trying to get me, Sandra, Shauna, Maddie, Carl, Ethan to go after German.
Mm-hmm.
Melissa comes up to me after she finds out and like gives me like a lecture. Like she like puts me in my place and she's like, Tony, you got to stop going after German. He's not going to work with us if you keep going after him. And I'm like, I tell her, I'm like, look, Melissa, we had this conversation. Like we thought we talked about getting rid of one of them if we get to the merge. Like this is our chance to do it. And she's fighting back, saying like, no, we need to work with them and go after, I think Shauna.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up just being like, okay, let me just go talk to Hannah and German and like squash it. And so I go talk to them and say, sorry, like we're good. And then obviously the vote happens, but
Well, so how, I guess, we'll start with this. So when do you start hearing your name come up?
Very last minute, really. Maybe like right before Tribal. At this point, only Melissa knows oh, wait a minute. Okay, hold on. Melissa's the only person I've told who has the idol. This is crazy. So obviously all our stuff is really wet. and disgusting, and bags are everywhere. And I never really consider hiding my idol. Like, I just threw it in my bag and like tucked it in my buff and like just put it in my bag. Like, no one's actually gonna go looking for through bags. Like, I just never
You
really
think, but someone looked in my bag my season.
Yeah. And so Trenica comes up to me and she's like, so I have something to tell you or ask you. And I'm like, she goes, I was like looking through the shelter and I went to grab my bag and I reached in it and grabbed my buff. And then I felt something in it. And then I looked at it and it was an idol. And she said, I'm really interested to know like what she says, if it's the truth. She says she accidentally looked in my bag, grabbed my buff, accidentally grabbed my idol, and then found out that I had an idol, which if she accidentally did it, I feel like that's why she told me. Because if she did it on purpose, I don't really know why she would tell me she found it. So she knew about it. And I think she told Ethan. So Ethan knew about it. So as we're walking to tribal council, I hear Sandra. I first of all, I see Kiri's lips whisper or move to somebody, and it says Tony. And then I see Shauna gets back, and she's pretty emotional from the outpost thing. And Sandra, I hear her say Tony. And at that point, I go to Melissa, and I'm like, I think I'm going to play it on myself. And she's like, go for it. I tell Trenica, I tell Ethan. Carl didn't know. I figured just to at least I'll deal with that after. The least people know about it, the better. I didn't think Trenica and Ethan know about it. So there's already too many people. But I honestly felt like we had the numbers. It just me, I don't know, being naive or whatever it was. I thought Hannah and German were voting with us and Charlie, and we were voting out Shauna.
Talk to me about Shauna. Why her?
To me, it felt like that's who Melissa wanted out. I mean, obviously, I would have preferred German, and it's probably good that I didn't do German because, I mean, it didn't matter because I was voted out soon after. But he played the idol after me, so German wouldn't have gone anyway. But in hindsight, I definitely wish it would have been Sandra instead of Shauna, because I feel like Shauna maybe would have gave me more of a chance than Sandra did. But it is. I mean, I didn't know at the time Carl and Shauna were super close either, because that was something Carl kept to himself, I think, which is good on him. And yeah, I think that's why it landed on her.
Yeah, because it's just interesting because my initial impression was like Shauna is probably one of the most uncomfortable people being with that other alliance and would likely be a target to say, come on over. They're going to vote you out again if you stay with them.
I think to Melissa, it seemed like that's who Hannah and German would have do and Charlie would do, which makes sense because they obviously just voted her out. Like, it adds up the why they would do that. And then for them to all vote together and stay together somehow after what they went on that non-Kano 2.0 tribe, I still don't know how they trusted each other enough to do that, but they did.
So you play your idol. You cancel 7 votes, which you were probably like thrilled about, except, you cancel 7 votes. It's 4 votes Shauna, 1 vote Sandra. Shauna exits the game once again, and that's that. How are you feeling after this tribal council?
I mean, even when I play, so I told Melissa this. I told her when I told her I was playing the idol, I was like, I think I might just put on the necklace when we get to tribal council and just wear it. And she was like, no, because then they'll just switch the votes to me. And I'm like, oh shit, you're right. Don't do that, Tony. Bad idea. And so after we all sent in our votes and Amos goes and tallies the votes, I do grab the idol and I put it on. And Carl is sitting next to me and Carl didn't know about it. And he's just like, hell yeah, good job, dude, or something like that. And then, I mean, still at this point, I think we're going to be majority. I feel like I'm wasting it. I felt like my name was coming up, but I felt like we were majority. But I was like, it's merged. Like, I'm not going home with this in my pocket. So I play it and the votes are coming out. And like, as soon as it hits the number that it's not supposed to hit,
Which
I look over at Ethan.
4 or 5.
I look over at Ethan and we're both just like, what? And we just look at each other at each vote. It's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. it was amazing. Like it's like the thrill of a lifetime to play an idol correctly.
Mm-hmm. So what's the fallout from this?
Gosh, Shauna goes, trying to think. We realized that we're the minority.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't necessarily feel like completely out of it yet. Like it starts to feel a little later. I don't have a safety net in an idol anymore. And I very much go into my game is over publicly. Like I really play into that. And I say this in my confessionals that I'm going to do this, that I'm not going to talk to anybody in the scramble period. I'm just going to say my game's over.
Mm-hmm.
And this gives them a chance to make a bigger move and not go after the obvious target in me. And it works for a vote, but they just, yeah.
One thing I've heard them mention is German gets that idol after that tribal council, right?
Yeah.
With Kiri's clue. Did you see that happen?
No, I didn't. Somebody told me, I think after I find out Kiri's upset that German got it from him, and I'm like, oh yes, great. Let's go make German this villain now because he just stole an idol from Kiri. And it's like these people just like hated each other but would not vote separately. It's like you couldn't even use it to split them up. Like it blew my mind how much they did that. But yeah, I mean, German getting it frustrated me. Finding out where the clue was in the fries like frustrated me. It's like I literally looked there first. It could be mine. I could have that and my tribe idol. And like, but trying to use that is basically like a way to target to pull Kiri in and use her. Carl is like, yes, we're good. Like we can get Kiri. She'll vote back. And then Kiri never does. And Kiri told Carl that like me and Melissa didn't really have conversations with her, which we really didn't. Nothing crazy. So like maybe that's on us, but it also kind of feels like Kiri would have just voted with them anyway to do that based off kind of the conversations I'm hearing after the game and stuff.
So that second immunity challenge for the merge, this is the push me pull you where you're holding these metal bars out like this, keeping one locked in the middle.
Yeah.
The only part that we have to see is the very ending where it's you versus Ethan heads up, and you are asking Ethan to throw the challenge, and it's just like, I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah. No, I gave him my best pitch. If the challenge stays elbows in, I think I can last a really long time.
But once you go full extension?
Once I went full extension, it got really hard pretty quickly. People were dropping. Ethan's bar dropped earlier in the challenge, so his was a lot lower than mine was. So I tried to look really confident at first, but it got hard pretty quickly. And then once I realized that I couldn't go much longer, I was like, my only hope to win this immunity is to basically get him to drop for me. He's like my number 3 ally at this point. Like he really trusts me. Like he just won the first immunity. Like I just got votes, play the auto correctly. Like maybe I can use this to keep myself safe. And it was my best pitch. So I mean, props to him for not falling for it. But I wish I don't know if this actually changes anything. And I don't know exactly because I went away that tribal and I really stayed by my log by myself. Like I did not, I wanted to be as low key as possible. So I don't know what he did with that immunity, but I believe if I would have won that immunity, I would have been really aggressive with the way I talk to people because you're safe. So like you gotta use that, I think, to try to do something. And I don't know if he did. Maybe he did. I just don't know. So maybe that's just something that maybe
hypothetical thing. So what would you have done? Would you have been very forceful with your pitches, or would you have like targeted someone else?
Yeah, I would have been more forceful in my pitches to like these people are a big group. Like I would have really targeted the Outlast group and like Hannah, German, Sandra. Probably would have gone after Sandra pretty hard right then, I think. With Charlie, because of the way Sandra threw out Charlie's name, I would have probably gone to Charlie, that would have been my pitch to basically go after Sandra, I think, if I had the immunity necklace and pitched it hard because I would have been safe. Like I got to do something.
And so when you're playing this low key, were people coming to you or was it pretty quiet?
It was really quiet for the first like 15, 20 minutes. Because me and Ethan, like I told Ethan to get away from me after he didn't do it. I mean, I did want it. Like it wasn't really like fake or anything. And so I was mad at first, but I also kind of like me and Ethan were good. Like we were like you could just tell when you're good with somebody, you're good with somebody. You can have a little fight and it doesn't matter. And me and Ethan were kind of like that. But I sat on that log by myself until Charlie finally came up to me and had a little conversation. I don't really remember what it was. I just tried to seem like sad, and like play into that. And he bought it. I think other people were buying it. Stan came up to me and did a confessional, and like I told him, I'm like, yeah, I'm just faking this right now. So I'm laying on the log, like just sitting by myself, and so that was kind of a fun moment. But yeah.
And so you were going to end up voting for German this round. Was this kind of a Hail Mary, or did you think that people were flipping to vote with you?
We thought Maddie could flip. That's what we were pitching. Ethan had his relationship with Maddie. He was with the Musty Misfits. Him and Melissa had a really good conversation at this point. I still felt okay with Maddie. I told Maddie walking into that tribal, I said, look, like I basically said, like, keep me safe. I'll never write your name down. Like I'll vote with you. Just tell me what to do. Use me as a number type thing. And thought it was possible he could flip. And then it was tied, what, 5-5?
6-5.
Yeah. And then, so we're waiting on the 6th vote. They could go either way. And then Carl's voted out. And I genuinely thought it was going to be Carl that round. I don't know if I ever say it in like a confession or anything, but in my heart, I really remembered thinking it would be Carl because it seemed like the biggest like blindside opportunity on somebody. So it didn't necessarily shock me that it was Carl because Melissa was immune this round, right?
Ethan won the immunity challenge.
Okay. Melissa won the next one. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just Hannah and Melissa still had like a side relationship, so I didn't think it would be Melissa. Ethan was immune. Trinica, I don't remember why I didn't think it was her. So yeah, it just basically process of elimination. I thought it was Carl gonna get. I remember you saying that, Carl.
Carl also feels shocked too.
Yeah.
So you are, if it wasn't official before, you are now officially in the minority. There's an alliance of 6. You were in a group of 4 with all original Kingdom members of Melissa, Ethan, and Trinica. This next challenge is Tell Me a Story. How is this challenge for you?
I'm very bad with memory, so I don't really like it. I wish it would have been like the next challenge, the one where you throw the ball at the tile. That I would have loved. But it actually works out. I feel good because I take off to the longest one first. And I get there before Kiri, and this is where I screwed up because I pause and I talk to Kiri. And I'm like, Kiri, open the first one. And we just have a conversation about it for like 10 to 15 seconds, which makes a huge difference in this challenge. And I'm just like, we can't waste time. So I just flip one over and I'm right. Just 1 out of 3 chance. Just grab the right one and go off. And then I grab another one and I think I get it right again. But it was either the second or the third one that I got wrong. I did not have the strategy that other people had as far as like following people. Very smart thought process on that, on their ends. Because I thought I could just run to places and get to them first. So at one point I missed one and I see they're saying who's at how many points as we're running. And I hear that Melissa is like near the top and I'm passing Melissa on like different ones. And I'm just telling Melissa where it's at. As I'm running by her, I'm like, this is the right one. This is the right one. So she knows what to grab immediately. I mean, she's my number 1, so I'm going to help her. But after she wins, I'm like, maybe it wasn't the best idea.
I was about to ask, like, in retrospect, with Melissa I don't know if Melissa would have been targeted this round, but her not being an option. Doesn't help you.
It doesn't help me at all. I don't think it matters. I think the only difference there is if I think if she didn't have it, I think they still vote me from what I have. But in the moment, I remember thinking like, maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I didn't regret it because I mean, I was happy she got it too.
So the previous round, you laid low and didn't do much.
Yeah.
What are you doing now?
This is probably my biggest regret in the game right here, because I continue to try to lay low and lower my threat level. I just put an auto correctly, and I don't try to do very much. I think at this point the flag, we got our merge. I think that it might have been the round before. We got our little merge flag, and we're like decorating it and stuff. And I'm still kind of laying low. And I think, and this is all in hindsight, so like obviously I'm voted out here, so I can say that this part, but I guess I wish I would have just used the last hour to like really try to pitch something rather than try to be low key. But I didn't. I was just low key. And it is what it is. I don't know if me pitching anything makes a difference anyway. It sounds like they were pretty locked in. But I did at this point. I'm like, they're gonna flip. I mean, everybody flips. So when's the last time you've seen a 6-person alliance like actually go strong? Like everyone thinks they're gonna flip, and it's
this
like,
season.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, whoever survives out of the 4 of us, like the 1 or the 2, like they're in a good position. So at this point, you're like trying to survive to be that 1 or 2. It ends up not actually happening, but
so how do you get to be Ethan and Trinica, right? Because they are potentially in the best swing spot.
Yeah, and so we get to walk into tribal, then they're just completely leaving us 4 out of the conversations, and I think that it's a good chance that it's Ethan because he won the first 2 immunities, and like, I mean, he's been better at me at challenges. I feel like because he's won the first 2 over me.
Yep.
And so Ethan makes sense, and if you're thinking about it from a social standpoint, I think Trinica makes sense because she seems good socially with people, so maybe they want to go after her. And then we're walking the tribal, and I think Ethan mentions playing his shot in the dark, and I'm like, oh, whatever. I mean, I'll play mine too. If it's me, I would at least want to try to play it. And so Ethan goes up first, I think, and does his, and then I go and I grab the shot in the dark. I'm looking at, he opens the jar for the shot in the dark things, and I grab one, and I actually see like the writing on the inside, the light shining light, and I can read the lighting, and it says safe. I can literally see it say safe, but I'm thinking as I'm like, okay, well, it could easily, I would just not safe is above it, not there. So like, I'm not going to see the word not, I'm just going to see one word because it's just like a roll of paper. So I'm like, okay, it could still say not. So I grab it and I'm like, this feels like wrong. But I looked at it, like it just felt like shady of me. And like, I used the word bush league earlier, just in baseball, just like, yeah. And so I'm like, let me put it back. And I just blindly like look away and reach in and just grab one. And so I grab it, play it, not safe. I find out as I get to the jury, Pete is very quickly to tell me that it was the safe one.
But I can respect saying like, hey, like this is supposed to be chances, not because I could read it and pick the correct one.
Yeah. But yeah. But it didn't matter. It was kind of, yes, I wish I would have played it and got it, but like, it sounds like I would have just been next anyway. So it doesn't really matter. I got a bed out of it in the jury house.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been like a 2-2, like it was interesting because it would have been a 2-2 vote between German and Ethan in that case, and then the revote, Ethan probably goes. Yeah. Maybe there's a world where like, exactly what's going to happen. Ethan votes for German, you're safe. German goes out, but maybe then you just have a type 5, or who knows, maybe it fractures from there.
Yeah. But it got me the last bet in the jury house, so.
I apologize. Correct me if I'm wrong. When you're walking out, when you're voted out, did you say anything to other players?
Oh yeah, that was kind of dramatic. So I had conversations with Charlie and Maddie were like my people that were in the majority that I was trying to work with the most. I felt like Maddie, I had told that like just keep me safe. I'll vote with you whenever you want me to vote with you. Charlie was the one who made me feel like he was always like trying to make a plan to like help me. I felt like out of all the people, and I guess the way like I had my people, like it was obvious, like the Musty Misfits, like we were being chopped off, like the majority never really gave us a chance. And then so I get voted out, and like I'm hugging my people, like Melissa, Trinica, and Ethan, like good luck, all these things. And then Charlie like sticks his hand out to like shake his hand. And I'm just like, get away from me. Go away. I do not want to shake your hand right now. And Sandra says something. I don't have no idea what she said. Like, it was just all in the moment. And I basically just said, shut the F up. And just like, I mean, I just got voted out. I'm feeling some type of way. And then, like, I'm bending over, and I remember hearing all this. I bend over with my torch. I didn't mean to do this. This was completely accident. But apparently it got really close to Kiri, my torch did. And she was like, watch out, or somebody said something like that. And I just said, like, my bad, like sarcastically or something like that. And we get to FTC, and as time passes, I feel bad for everything I did there. I wish I would have handled it a little differently, but it happened, and I was in a mood, I guess.
So, as a juror, what do you look for in a winner?
I've been debating on how I wanted to answer this part of this, because this may surprise some people, but look, they were very strong 6-person alliance. Congratulations, you made it to final 6. But guess what you did? You put the 5 people who you left out, the majority, in the jury. And guess what I'm going to do with that? I'm going to make sure that Sandra doesn't win.
How come?
I just talked to the jury, and I'm okay with Charlie or Maddie winning at this point. I'm okay with I would vote German to win. I'd vote out. I was just really bitter, mad, whatever you want to call it, towards Sandra, because how she made me feel in the game. And we get to there. Shauna and Sandra were really close. I was there pretty early with Shauna. Shauna was pro Sandra. So it's a game in the jury about of who you want to win and stuff. And I don't know if I manipulated or anything like that, but like just slowly pushing pros towards certain people and cons towards Sandra. So when we get to the votes and talking about it, like I don't really care who wins as long as it's not Sandra, to be honest with you. As it's going, I have an order, like as it's being played. I think Kiri started playing like a super amazing game. Like she flipped on her OG tribe. She's made it to this point. She's won immunities. She played an idol. She got an idol, but all that stuff. Shot in the dark correctly. German, I've written his name down 3 times at this point. Like, respect for you outplayed me. You got here. Like, I would have voted German at that point to win the game. Hannah, I mean, I respected Hannah's game. I thought she played well. But then it gets down to the final 3 of Maddie P and Charlie and Sandra. And I'm very 50-50 on Charlie and Maddie P. So Charlie giving me, I don't know if we're to this point yet, but I guess I'll talk about it.
We're here. Let's do it.
So Charlie at FTC surprises me and says he got this advantage to give a juror an extra vote. And I feel like I was Charlie's maybe first or second, like number 1 in the game, based off we went to the outpost. So, and we get into the FTC questioning, and I'm saying, like, I'm sorry for being the way I was. So I understood he needed, like, he probably had German's vote. So, like, a second vote from German wasn't really a big deal. Like, getting a second vote from somebody who was more midway about maybe voting you could be huge. So I expected his risk there a lot.
Well, you asked 3 different jury questions, right? You start by you apologize to Sandra, kind of ask, like, why didn't you make the move again to respect the minority?
Yeah.
You talk to Matty P and you ask him about his relationship with Ethan. But then you actually tee up Charlie. Like, you give a very good question to Charlie to help him say, hey, talk to me more about this talk to me more in depth about your decision between German and Melanie and how you came to the decision and own this move. And, like, honestly, I was like, oh, wow, it seems like Tony was really in Charlie's court with that question, because it was such a good question for Charlie to say, here's what I did, here's a discreet moment, let me own it.
Yeah, like I was very 50-50 on it. With Matty P, it was like, God, he was so fun and funny, and I loved him. Like, socially, he was incredible. And then Charlie, like, we talked about this in the jury, we wanted Charlie to own being, like, the biggest villain in the game. If Charlie just sits there and owns being, like, a huge villain, and like lying and being deceitful. And maybe he wasn't, but we felt like he was. If he owns that, I truly think that he probably wins the game. But I never felt like he owned that in FTC. I really wanted to give him a chance to earn my vote, and I was really close. And honestly, if he doesn't give me the extra vote, I think I'm more likely to vote Charlie.
Wait, so why would him give you the? Because that made it seem like Charlie thinks he has your vote.
No, it made me more worried that my 2 votes now could, if we split the votes on Charlie and Maddie, it gives Sandra a better chance of winning. So if I think I know Maddie's winning the game, I really do, just based off jury conversations. If I waste 2 votes on Charlie, it gives Sandra a better chance of beating one of them.
Okay,
that's honestly how my mind went, and I debated on saying that because it's probably kind of like lame, I guess, from a game sense. But I think Maddie played really well too, and I really do was 50-50 on both of them. But yeah.
So like, so it definitely could have been a world where like Charlie gets votes from both you and German in that case.
Yeah. I was. If I don't get that extra vote from Charlie, I don't know for sure. I was more likely to vote Charlie, but I still might have voted Maddie.
Who'd you think was likely to vote Sandra at the final tribal?
Shauna. Yeah, 100%. She was pro Sandra the whole time. But I will say,
Charlie is not loving this revelation right here.
I figured that was probably not the best thing, but it wouldn't have mattered. You still wouldn't have been enough votes anyway. But yeah, I guess Shauna was number 1, who I thought would vote Sandra. Who else is there? Kiri's, German, Hannah. No, that was really it, I think, with Shauna. But I thought there was a chance, like Kiri could. She started with Sandra. They played together a good bit. Kiri could. German could. I honestly just wanted to let them not have the majority, like, because they had the majority the whole game. Like it was my turn to have the majority in the jury. Get over it. But maybe that's bitter. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. But
so let's say like a move, like Ethan Trinker used, a move is made at that final. How many people are left here? Let's say a move is made at the final 7 or 8 with a minority, right? And then let's say eventually Ethan Trinker do go to the jury, but there was a move, so there was some interplay. Would that have changed your reaction to things?
Yeah, and this is a big thing with Sandra, and I asked her this at FTC. Like, Sandra never played with anybody. This is part of the game. Like, Sandra never played with the other side. Maddie was on a tribe with us. He got to play with the other side. Charlie started with us. He got to play with both sides. Sandra never did. Like, yes, respect. Like, your side probably likes your game because you stayed with them and you made moves with them. You may have been strategic within your alliance, but like we did not get that part of you. And to me, that's a fault to her game. And Charlie, like, I think she would have needed to flip-flop a couple of times for me to like give her my vote. Charlie, I just needed like one flip, like literally just one flip somewhere, and like Charlie would have had my vote to win the game easily, I think. Maddie, it was like he got his revenge. We voted Maddie out. Like he didn't have to vote with us. He got his revenge, and that's why I think we all end up voting Maddie P to win the game.
Looking back in retrospect, is there anything you think you could have done to change how this merge played out? Is it all just a French fry?
I mean, it's pretty much a French fry. I mean, I think there's like if one person comes back, different people come back from the battle bag. I think that changes a lot. And I'll say this: I think Carl touched on this too. Like, if the 6 and oh my God, this pissed me off so much. At some point early in the merge, someone said that, oh, if y'all had the majority, y'all would do the same thing. And I was like, there's no freaking way. If the 6 of us had majority, it's lasting more than 2 votes, because Ethan and Melissa were like ready to target each other at any moment. And which was perfect for me. Like I genuinely felt like I was in such a good position if we had a majority in the merge, because I was the middle spot between Melissa and Ethan, and I would have kept them together as long as I could. And when the moment came, I would have picked a side. I would have picked Melissa's side. And I think I've been asked by a couple people, like if we get to a certain point, would I've ever voted out Melissa? And I am someone who like really believes in the game I play. Like
Mhm.
I always feel like I have a chance at FTC. I feel like I can beat anybody if I get there, and
Mhm.
just from online games. But so I don't think I would have voted out Melissa. Genuinely, I really don't, because I think I would have had a chance to win. But in hindsight, I think I realized that Melissa would have won. But yeah, maybe that happens and Melissa wins. But I think we're like a number away at merge, and I'm in FTC. Like, yeah, I mean that's easy to say, I guess, in hindsight. But
Mhm.
I think I'm in a really good spot, maybe the best in the game if it's just one vote different.
How was kind of the post game after party and all that?
It was fun. I mean, I would get it there, and Danny's like ready to greet me with a hug, and that was like his thing. Appreciated that, and I think, gosh, I don't even remember. I think I took a shower first. No, wait, I don't remember if I
It's
ate.
pretty high on the priority list of things to do when you're voted out of a game.
I don't even remember if I ate first. I think I showered. I think I showered. I don't know. I know I showered, and it was a decent little shower. Took a crap for the first time. That was nice. Took 0 when I was out there, so got to the shower. I was like, all right, I guess I have a toilet. I'm ready to go now. And so that was nice. And then I had just a really chill turkey, ham, and cheese sandwich with some chips and salsa, and just like devoured it, and ate a lot of chips and salsa. And yeah, ate a lot of food after I was voted out. Like I think I weighed myself before the game started, and then like right when I got voted out, and it was like down 9 pounds, I think.
Mhm.
And I bet you by the time I got out of there, like I was like only lost like 2 pounds just because I ate so much at the house or whatever. But
Is there anything else about your game that you want to talk to or go into depth that maybe we haven't had a chance to look into?
No, I mean, jury was fun. I mean, we had Shauna, like she said, like she was very much like we were very negative in the jury, like ready to cut people's throats. And Shauna was just like, calm down. Yeah, meditating, I guess. And Carl like was back and forth on Kiri the entire time. I hate Kiri. I love Kiri. I hate Kiri. I love Kiri. So like that was something. Carl was always sneaking off to smoke cigarettes and getting yelled at. Melissa got there, and it was fun. Like we figured out, like Melissa figured out that Amos was the one to like always ask questions to if you ever wanted something.
It's like you find the parents like, oh, my mom won't relent, but my dad
Yeah.
might. It's just like you find that one person, you're like, I know I can get what I want from you.
Yeah, so we hear them playing minis, and like we want to play, but we hear that you're supposed to stay in the jury house, whatever. They're like kind of strict about it. And we asked Parker first, and Parker says no. And then Melissa, I'm like, go ask Amos. Amos will never say no to you. And so she goes to the stairs and says, like, can we play? And then Amos is like, yeah. And so we got to play the mini, which was really cool. And I don't think it factored into like anything like game wise. Like none of us were talking to the pre-jury people like about the game. Like it was genuinely just about the mini, which was a lot of fun. And this is like, oh my God, Amos is freaking awesome. And like when you're there playing, he's the guy. Like he's Jeff Probst, and like you're kind of intimidated by him. But when we were playing the mini with them, and like I was chatting with him, like we were literally like I felt like number ones in the first little mini we played, and it was just so cool to see him like as a friend rather than like a Jeff Probst, I guess, type person. So that was cool. And I want to give a shout out to production just in general. Like special shout out to Austin. Like he was my guy when the tribe handlers came. Like all of them I love, but I want to give a special shout out to Austin because I think he was the one there during the Musty Misfits 2.0 tribe, and like he was just there like for all the moments for me, like the idol. I remember talking to him about it in the confessional, and like yeah, I don't know. I just really appreciated all of them, but I just want to give a special shout out to Austin.
I have some final kind of rapid fire questions to throw at you as we round out here.
Okay.
Who surprised you the most your season?
I'm going to cheat and give you two answers.
Okay.
So one person surprised me because of general initial read a book by its cover, like surprised me, which was Kiri.
Mhm.
I initially thought Kiri was going to be the first person voted out on that tribe, just from like straight up just looks. I'm just going to mention this while we talk about this, because on the outpost with James and Sandra, oh yeah, I'm the first one. No, James had one, but I don't know if he said this. He told us four there, and he literally said, I'm good. I have a majority. I'm fine. Like, he was just like so confident, and Sandra's there, and they're just like, yeah, we have this majority alliance, blah, 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 blah. And it was just like, whoa. So we thought Kiri was like kind of in trouble, and yeah, she ends up surviving. So from that point, like, she surprised me because she played great the entire game. Props to her. And then from seeing the game play out and like playing with this person really closely to see how like much they lied, and I felt like, at least with Charlie, he's an 18-year-old. Like, he came off as more like timid and stuff, but I think he ended up playing pretty gutsy, and yeah, that shocked me a little bit.
Who do you wish you had a chance to work with but didn't have one?
I mean, Debbie's kind of the obvious answer, so I'm gonna give somebody else. It's Debbie, but I'll say Jordan. And you know what? Me and Jordan, actually, she's probably like the one person on this cast I like haven't even messaged or talked to, like in the pre-jury. We just never really.
Yeah, you didn't overlap.
Yeah, never really did that, and I like really like her personality. I think she's like confident, and I don't know, I think she's really cool, and I really would have enjoyed like being locked in with her like in an alliance. I think it would have been really fun because I think she's funny too.
If Reelfoot, let's say Reelfoot's going to have a returning season, what's one player from your season you'd like to see come back beside yourself?
If not me, I'm cheat again because I'm just going to keep cheating with these answers because there's two people that I think deserve this answer, and I can't pick one or the other, and it's Melissa and Carl, for different reasons. So they could come back for two different seasons, I think, because it's two different reasons completely. Carl, huge personality, first person to flip on his OG tribe. I mean, I guess Ethan and him flip at the same time, but he's just a huge personality as well. And Melissa, just because like she's just such a beast. Like, I appreciate having Melissa out there so much. And like from a gameplay perspective, she's awesome. Socially great. And challenges, like I want to say, like in the challenge where we did the bag toss and we had to land it on the thing where we're holding the rope and we're holding it together. I really love that challenge, but we did the puzzle after that, and we're kind of like stalling, and everyone's kind of trying to talk everybody. Matty P's like freaking out because he knows he's the one voted out, so he's like really freaking out, trying to like move pieces. Carl's like trying to block, but also trying to play, and finally Carl just like ends up blocking mostly. Finally, I'm like watching because I just don't really get the puzzle. I'm like trying to help, but I don't want to mess with people, so I'm observing. Like I feel like I've done a lot this game, but I see that Melissa she has it pictured in her head. Like I just feel like she has it, and I basically am like, everybody stop, like let Melissa do this. She has this. Like I can see her have it, and finally everybody backs up, and she does it, and she's like so proud of herself, and I'm so proud of her, and like she's like, I don't know, we bonded a lot, and she's become one of my really good friends, I believe.
What's your favorite challenge this season?
Gosh. There's different parts of different ones. I really like the kayak one because I kind of like overcame my first fall in a kayak. I was able to do it pretty quick, and then I was the one who was on the puzzle, and everybody's sitting there like watching you. ready to do it. It's like a very iconic Survivor moment. I feel like to be the one on the puzzle and finish it. But some what's the word I'm looking for? Some other options are the bag toss onto the thing was cool, and being blindfolded was really cool. I enjoyed that as well. That was fun.
What's a favorite camp life moment that maybe we haven't talked about?
I'm going to say this, and I probably shouldn't because it's so embarrassing on my part. Nobody knows this except Charlie.
It's okay. It's 2 hours and 19 minutes in, so only everyone will listen to it.
Everybody will know this as soon as I say it because it's like so embarrassing. Charlie, if you're watching, I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it. Even though I made Charlie, when this happened, I made Charlie like swear on everything. Like, do not tell anybody this ever in your life. But I'm just going to own it because, he said say it. That's what it is. So, God, I'm turning red. We're searching for idols, me and Charlie, because we get the clue, right? And we're looking around, and look, I see something down there by this tree. Oh my God, that's got to be it. It's right after the idol clue. Like they just hit it. It's going to get it. So I open it up. I'm going in it. It's 100% a tampon bag. 100%. 100%. And it happened. And I will say, I don't know if there was like supposed to be a certain spot for this like trash to be, or like what we were supposed to know where it was, but there was no way to know. It literally was like they were spread out around our camp. Like there wasn't a specific spot because later on we see them all over the place. And this was just happened to be the first one, and it was right after I got the clue. And yeah, I mean Charlie thought it was too. So I mean we both, it looked like something for sure. And yeah, so it happened, but whatever. You're so gross and like dirty then. Like I really did not care at all. But it was just like, gosh, people are this is embarrassing, but whatever. I don't care.
If you go back in time, give yourself one piece of advice before starting this game, what would you tell yourself?
I mean, this is such an easy answer because it was so cold out there and miserable. And I think other people have said this too, but like I would have just brought warmer clothes. And the thing is, I almost brought lighter sweatpants, but I ended up bringing like my snowboard, like thermal sweatpants.
Good
and
call.
Like, it was like, I mean, it didn't even help. Like it was still freezing cold. And like I had a long sleeve shirt. I had my hoodie. Like, I guess, I don't even know if I could have worked with Danny. I guess I could have brought like a bigger, like Shauna, like poncho jacket thing, but I would just bring everything like warm that I could. One piece of advice that I would give like other players coming in is I feel like this benefited me a lot in the game was like, be aware, like just sit back and watch people sometimes. And you can just learn so much so quickly, like who's talking with who, how long they're talking, reading people's lips. People are terrible at whispering like that. Like it's so easy to hear people if you just like actually focus and listen on their conversation.
You mentioned this before. It sounds like you would be open to playing another game in the future.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm a competitive person, and I love the game of Survivor. I've applied a few times, haven't heard back. Would love to, but we'll keep applying and see if that happens. But yeah, I mean, LRGs are something that I'm probably gonna get into, and there's some that I've heard of more than others. There's some, but now it's like, okay, we just played a game with all these Reelfoot people. Next year, it's like, okay, they might apply for the same game that I'm thinking about applying. So it's like you don't want to play with a bunch of people who you really just played with. You want to play with new people. So like there's going to be figuring that out.
That's a production casting issue on the other side of things, right? Yeah. That's not your concern. You put your name out there, you say, hey, I'm willing, and if they like you, if they see you fit, etc., then they make it happen.
Yeah. So yeah, I love it. I'll try to play one next year. Don't know what it'll be. I'm open to. I've actually never really. I'm watching Big Brother live for the first time. I'd be open to doing that. I'd be open to Traders and Mole those type of games. I'm a big reality TV buff, so pretty much all of them I would do.
There are options, and it's kind of an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, thank you so much for taking your time tonight to talk to me. I really appreciate and really loved you finally getting to understand a much better picture of the Okina tribe and this Musty Misfit alliance as it started through the merge.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing this, man. It's like, I don't know, it feels really cool to be able to just kind of let it all out, like let all your feelings out in the game out. Hearing other people's perspectives is really cool. I'm excited to hear like the other people in the Musty Misfits go, and I'm interested to see what the people in the Majority Alliance go. If the people who got voted out 6, 5, and 4, if they have any regrets about not using any of the Akina 2.0 people as numbers.
I imagine there's likely going to be some regrets, saying because I think that's what makes the season like this so interesting. Is like you have a tight alliance who gets a starting point because everyone thinks the alliance is going to shake out a certain way, right? And we're only going to learn once it happens how it would be.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I also, as it's playing out, like, I'm trying to understand like how they're staying so tight, and I get it. Like, we're mad that we're being left out of it. So now if you let one of us get to the end, you have 5 people who are probably going to vote one of those. Like if Trinica makes it to the end, like you got 5 people who want to vote Trinica to win. Like that's dangerous. But if you use her at a number at 7 to blindside Maddie P or Charlie or somebody like that, and then you get Trinica out of 6, like it maybe gives you a chance better at 5 and 4 and so on. But I mean, that's all in hindsight. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, again, Tony, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This has been one of many Surviving Reelfoot deep dive interviews. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Central Time, I'll be talking to the next Musty Misfit, Melissa. So get excited for that, and we will continue our way through the season. So take care, everyone. Thank you once again, Tony, and have a good rest of your night.
Yep.